Welcome back to Hinamizawa, everyone. Let's dig into this next chapter. I'm thinking this chapter will be the day before the festival, and the next chapter is probably going to be Festival Day. And you know what happens around Festival Day. Some shenanigans happen, crazy stuff goes awry, and then we might get into stuff that happens afterwards. Who gets murdered? Whether anyone gets murdered? Is our character doing the killing? I mean, our guy seems to want someone dead, but he's not actually. I don't know if he is willing to, like, actually go through with murdering someone. Sometimes you get really angry and you're like, I wish this guy person was dead, but it's hard to tell if someone's actually willing to commit to murdering someone. But I guess we'll find out here if our character really is broken enough to want to just outright murder someone. And, like, premeditate it by at least a good day, too. Alright, Mion and the others, having set up for the Watanagashi festival or something, invited me along, but I refused. Okay, so he was invited along to go set up for the Watanagashi, but he didn't go. That's different from the last time where he helped set up. Of course, I did. How could they be taking it easy and setting up for a festival in this situation? Mion had a lot of nerve. He's taking it seriously. He refused to go to the festival, but what is he gonna do? What's his plan for... Is he seriously gonna go through with murder, or is he just, like, having an angry moment? The first thing I did when I got back was take a shower. Not because I wanted to wash off sweat, it was because I wanted to be calmer. You know, this doesn't sound like a shower, this sounds like rain. I already understood this, but killing that man would be so very easy. He's got so much confidence. The really hard thing would be not getting arrested for it, so we could get our peaceful days back. As I thought about it, I realized it wasn't easy. The killing part's easy, the getting away with it's hard. Japan's police force have the highest arrest rate in the world, yep. You need to deceitfully pull off the perfect crime, and it couldn't be a half-hearted attempt. And it still wasn't 100%. Even the best police force in the world couldn't have a 100% arrest rate. I've read a lot of articles on trials with people brought up on false charges. At court, they consider whether the charges are false or not, but figuring out the real criminal is entirely out of scope. And that meant perfect crimes did exist. Yes, they do exist, my friend. You can, in fact, have the perfect crime. In fact, perfect crimes are sort of like works of art. They could even be respected and revered. You just had to look at the inundation of mystery novels everywhere throughout history. They dealt with all sorts of difficult-to-solve incidents involving secret rooms, alibis, and stuff. But they all wanted to show one thing. They wanted to show the beauty of a perfect crime. Is it just me, or is this rain really loud? This is, of course, the in-game rain. There was something divine in the flawlessness of the word perfect. Yes, perfect crimes were the skills of the gods. And in that sense, the serial freak deaths they were calling the curse of Oyashiro-sama, I understood they must have been the works of gods. Each one appeared to have been resolved, but they couldn't stop it from happening every year. Skills belonging only to gods, those are the perfect crimes. And I would be setting up my own crime before Oyashiro-sama's series of perfect crimes 4 years in the running. If I were to put it boldly, I was challenging a god. Foolhardiness would be needed to make the decision, but I needed to be calm, cooler, colder than ice to put the plan together. Kill him like a flame, but as systematic as ice. Starting now, I need to retain both of those ideas within me. Do you even know if this guy's going to be at the festival, what he's going to be doing? Modeling my crime after a mystery novel wasn't a bad thing to focus on. Okay. Sometimes kidnappings involved disturbing. Original methods that made it into the newspaper were used as the basis for novels after the person was arrested. Stuff like that made it into the news. Day and night for a very long time. Authors polished and refined their most fantastic artistic crimes. Imitating that could be a shortcut to planning the perfect crime in a short period of time. Of course, I haven't read enough mystery novels to act high and mighty about them. Have you read any? The one who really liked mystery novels was my mom. Yep, his mom likes mystery novels, so he can probably borrow a couple of hers. She'd read every well-known mystery novel from overseas, from past and present. Every time she watched mystery shows, she'd always criticize them as having cheap tricks or being poorly thought out. I wonder what the perfect crime would mean to her. What do I think the most well-done perfect crime in all mystery novels I've read is? I swear to God, if he asks his mom this, but doesn't ask her to take care of Satoka. Oh my god. Please don't. Yeah. Well, you read a lot of them, right? I figured you might know a lot about them. Are you fucking kidding me? This kid's like, I can't ask my parents to take in someone who's suffering, someone who's being like beaten up by their parents. But you know what I can do? I can ask them to help me consult for me in a fucking murder. Are you serious, dude? You're like, I'm gonna kill someone. Well, I'm gonna ask my mom what she thinks the best way to kill someone is. Hey mom, what's the best way to kill someone in your murder novels? Really? Yeah, I want to know. Like, really? You're gonna use that as your basis? Like, just imagine how sus that is. It's like, huh? How's the best way you could imagine to murder someone? Well, I'd do this. They get murdered. Everything lines up. No way, it's Keiichi, right? He didn't just follow my, favorite novel word for word, did he? That'd be crazy. It's more fun to read than to find it. If I told you all the tricks right off the bat, there'd be no fun anymore. It wasn't like I was asking for my own amusement. She was deflecting the question, so I'd somehow butter her up first and draw out an answer. Of course, Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None was my favorite recommendation. Murder on the Orient Express used some great bold tricks too. Of course, I didn't see it coming at all. I didn't want to know which novels you liked. I wanted to know about the trick that made you the most surprised. It was a really perfect trick. The detectives wouldn't be able to solve the case, though. That's true. Then there'd be no point, and there'd be no novel if the case was unsolvable, or at least, it wouldn't be your standard mystery novel. Mystery novels are enjoyable because of the process of the mysteries being solved, and they're enjoyable because part of the rules of mystery novels is that you always have to be able to know who the culprit is. There are no perfect crimes in mystery novels because the reader has to be able to intuit who the culprit is, as does the actual detective. If it was unsolvable, it wouldn't make a very good topic for a novel, so it won't be a novel. Dead end, wannabe killer. What now? I get it. You're right. If the main character can't solve it, it wouldn't be much of a story. Was I being too simplistic? A mystery novel is basically a game. They were written so you can get to the goal, so you could solve them. Yeah. Yeah, and no mystery novel is going to have an unsolvable crime. But I couldn't use something so optimistic. It needed to be the be-all, end-all of tricks so that we could, without a doubt, return to our old lives. By the way, Keiichi, do you understand that truly perfect crimes don't even become stories? I don't think he gets that. Yet, at least. Mom looked at me intellectually and grinned impishly. If it was a perfect crime, no one would know about it. Right? If someone knows about it, that it's not perfect. I'd never gotten to read it, but apparently one time long ago, Mom wrote her own mystery novel and submitted it for some mystery novel award. Apparently she was really into it. Don't become stories with, I mean, it means if someone knows about it, it means you got caught and it wasn't the perfect crime. Keiichi, what are the essential parts of a story? Beginning, middle, and end? Oof, no, that's not how it goes. Well, sort of. The beginning, of course, is especially important. If there's no beginning, the story never starts. I don't know if I'd say beginning, middle, end are the core parts of a story, but you could say something like that works. I feel like you need a more complete story for a proper story, but yeah, it's fine. If nothing happened, nothing would begin. Alright. Well, this is a simplistic rendition, though. We'll go with it. Nothing happens. There wouldn't be an incident. Detectives wouldn't be called. There wouldn't be any mystery. There'd be no mystery, so there'd be no solution. In other words, it would be the ultimate perfect crime. If the cops are called, it's not the perfect crime. Wait a second. Did you explain that again? My mom told me something absurd. How is it not absurd? If the story never begins, there's no need for a conclusion. As she was saying it so smoothly, I kind of tuned her out, but she said something extremely important. If the detectives aren't called, there isn't a mystery, so there'd be no solution, and it would be the ultimate perfect crime. It's not that difficult to understand. The incident has to never come to light, that's all. It just has to never come to light. For example, how about this? Say there's an old man living deep in a forest nobody goes into. Yeah. One day he gets killed by an axe. And let's say the criminal was the old man's son. He went to the old man's house. They were drinking together, they got in a fight, he killed him. One extremely cheap plot. It was an impulsive crime without a bit of planning. It was far from a perfect crime. But Keiichi, the house was deep in the forest. So deep in the mountains, no one would ever go out that far. His son would go back to town and say the old man was doing fine. What about that's a perfect crime? Keiichi, It would only begin when it was found out that the old man was killed. If nobody visited the old man's house after that, the beginning would never occur. Beginning would never occur. So basically the story wouldn't start. The incident wouldn't come to light and they wouldn't call in detectives. And nobody would be suspicious in the first place, so there'd be no mystery. That's right. They think the old man was still living by himself deep in the forest. And the old man's face would appear in the sky and that would be it. Something like that, you know? It's amazing. This is a pretty great trick. How is that a great trick? That's like the most obvious shit, Keiichi. Come on. Wouldn't be a novel. Mystery novels are for entertainment, after all. They can't be instruction manuals for perfect crimes. I was trying hard to talk cheerfully to fool her, but inside I was excited. Special tools, strange geography, mysterious drugs, traps involving huge sums of cash. None of them are needed for the perfect crime. The important thing was that there wasn't a beginning. If nobody finds out they're dead, it doesn't matter if you've killed them or not. Yeah, that's true. As long as the incident doesn't come to light, it would be fine. If no one knows you stole anything, no one knows it. If no one's the wiser that anything criminal happened, then you're right. You're right, dude. Speaking broadly, if I could kill him with no one finding out and dispose of the corpse somewhere no one would find, and somehow get Satoko to not mention it, it would basically already be a perfect crime. Of course, if someone up and vanished one day, all of a sudden people would get suspicious. But I mean, if he vanishes, it's fine. That didn't apply to this man. Last year, after their aunt died, he ran away from the village in fear of Oyashiro-sama. When the night of Watanagashi came around again, everyone would have to think he ran away in fear again. I mean, he'd been living with a lover of his in town, who was murdered. That's not great. He doesn't know that, though. He doesn't know that the lover was murdered, and that's why he's back in town. No matter what it felt like when he vanished, no one would be suspicious. People hated him, after all. No one would care where he went if he disappeared. I mean, Ueshi-sama would probably care. When I thought about it like that, it got easier and easier to imagine killing him. There was no point in thinking inside my house anymore. I left, getting my bike out of the garage. For now, it didn't matter where I was going. I just rode through the wind, trying to calm my excitement by feeling the cool air on my body. Where I'd kill him, how I'd do it, what time, and how to dispose of the corpse. If I just had those 4 things, I could get a good plan going. You have 1 day to do this. Are you seriously going to do it in 1 day? Alright. I was surprised at how little there was to decide that I shivered. I'd been completely prepared to build this huge plan over a long period of time. But if I could get these little things in order, I could put it into motion. Today was Saturday. I could kill him on the night of Watanagashi. So long as I was standing in for Oyashiro, I only had 24 hours remaining. Satoko. Just hang on, 24 more hours. I can't even imagine having to sever 3 even more, but please hold out a little longer. I know you can't last another second, I know that. But please, just hold out. Nini will save you for sure. But you need way more information. This is during a festival that like everyone in the village is going to. Is the old man going to be at the festival? Is he going to be hiding? Is he going to be skipping town for the entire weekend? You don't know any of this right now. Outside it was still early enough for the cicadas to be crying. Early afternoon. Evening was a long way off. I looked at the sky. At some point, it had gotten cloudy. Remember, this old man is also hanging out with, like, well, the only time you've seen it, he's been hanging out with friends because he hosts mahjong nights at his house. You don't know if anyone's going to expect him to be there. Like, he has guests over at semi-regular he might be having guests over at semi-regular intervals. It's probably not a good idea to make him disappear. People all wonder what happened to him. Alright, come to think of it, as he left the house, I heard on the TV that weather was calling for a chance of rain on Sunday. Sky was the color of lead. If I heard a little bit of thunder, I'd definitely have expected a sudden evening shower. My first destination was school. Before explaining why I was going there, I need to explain what method for killing that man I decided upon. I decided the most suitable death was the same as last year's curse. The same as the punishment their aunt received, being beaten to death. Wouldn't beating him to death be somewhat unreliable? You may think stabbing him with a blade would be more reliable, but this was something I'd chosen after a lot of thought. Aren't you like 14? You just need to think realistically. The law prohibited carrying blades longer than 10 centimeters. The blades available to me, even the longest, were limited to things shorter than a ruler. I mean, 10 centimeters is considerably shorter than a ruler. Rulers are 30 centimeters, my friend. You can understand how tricky it would be with such a short reach to go up against an opponent that might fight back. Aren't kitchen knives longer than 10 centimeters? I'm pretty sure I have some kitchen knives that are longer than 10, well above 10 centimeters. In that case, a weapon with more reach, like a staff, would be far more advantageous. But you're going to be hitting him indoors? It may not be as inherently lethal, since you could keep hitting the guy until you killed him. I guess the end would be the same, but... I mean, you have to remember, you have your baseball bat that you're probably going to get has a lot of, like... You have to swing it, which means you need a lot of space to operate in. You can't use it indoors unless you're in a room, and if you're in a room, you can't go overhead. You can only go... Unless he's already on the ground, you can only swing left and right. And you can't stab with it. Now, a baseball bat with a spike on the end. Now we're talking. Baseball bat with nails, that works. A board with nails in it, a little bit harder. Less aerodynamic. Since you could keep hitting the guy to kill him, the end result's the same, that's what you're going with. So what's a staff-like deadly weapon? Terrifyingly powerful and eminently portable? By this point, you should think of a metal baseball bat. Yep. I don't need to explain how terrifying a metal bat can be as a weapon. Of special note's the fact you can carry one in broad daylight and not be thought of as suspicious. Just those 2 points should have been enough to choose a metal bat for my weapon. But there was one more reason for choosing a metal bat in particular. I'll speak about it later. After school that Saturday, my classmates were still having fun playing in the schoolyard. A bat with nails would work fine, right? I could show up there and it'd be the same as always. Nobody would think I'm suspicious. Getting my hands on the weapon without looking suspicious was actually a factor I couldn't ignore. I didn't normally play baseball, so if I went to a sports store looking for a bat, it would definitely be suspicious. So instead we're going to go to school where there's like 20 people and get a bat. I can't let there be a beginning to the story, so I needed to be careful even about that. I left school. At a location in which my appearance wouldn't be suspicious, I'd acquire the weapon. I checked in the classroom through the window, but of course there was no one there. The only students who would stay in there were me and the others when doing club activities. Without us, the classroom after school was an empty, unused room. Without glancing around nervously, as if I'd just gone to get something I'd forgotten, I casually went in the entrance. It looked like the teacher was busy with paperwork in the teacher's lounge. I didn't see her in the hallway. Naturally, yet quickly as a shadow, I entered the classroom. The empty room was full of a strange, stagnant air you couldn't feel normally. An empty classroom with no one there. Maybe while no one was around, the desks creep out of their own accord, licking the floors clean of dirt. Interesting imagination. If I suddenly stepped into a place like that, would the desks in their surprise fly at me, crush my bones, and eat me alive? Quite the imagination. He steps into an empty classroom and he's like, "Are the desks gonna murder me?" That's ridiculous. I felt regret at wasting valuable thinking time on stupid delusions. You know, if this was Chaos Child, we would have actually probably had an option to hallucinate that happening. That would have been funny. The students' lockers were lined up in the back of the classroom. The one I was looking for wasn't my own, it was a forbidden locker. One I accidentally discovered one day. Here it is, Hojo. This has to be it. If one person has one locker, then why would only Satoko have two? I made a fuss about it once. And after that, I learned it was Satoshi's, and he had the same last name as her. But of course, even though it was a locker for a student no longer here, looking inside it was still a shameless act. But one time, I let my curiosity get the better of me and took a peek inside. Inside, it was average and worthless. At the time, I hadn't been interested, so until now, I'd forgotten what had been in it. But now that I had, dare I say it, awakened, I remembered the thing that had been there. Scrape. I opened the door and a stench of mold and sweat wafted out, like a gym storehouse that hadn't been cleaned in weeks. My face puckered up at the stench, but I looked for it. Yes. You see, Satoshi was on Coach's baseball team. And inside the locker was a Hinamizawa fighter's uniform. And it. The one Satoshi used, the metal bat. Yes. This was the reason I wanted to choose this bat. The murder would be carried out by me, but it wasn't originally my role, it was Satoshi's. I would stand in for him and call myself Satoko's Nini. It was one of the rules for standing in for him. I reached for the metal bat and grasped it firmly. Grasp it firmly with both hands. It was light. And yet its tip had enough heft in it, enough to easily imagine the horror if I brought it down with all my might. Satoshi, I'll give you one last chance to save your sister. Lend me your strength. You're a coward, but I'll stand in for you. If you still care even a little bit about her, you'll lend me your strength. There's no more suitable weapon in the world for putting that man to death than your bat. And now I just need to figure out where to hide it. Tomorrow, before the act, I had to stop by the school and grab it. Because I couldn't ignore the possibility someone would see me bring it home and think it was strange. But if I left it here, there wouldn't be a problem. Plus, tomorrow is Sunday. Not only that, it's the day of the biggest festival in the whole village. Nobody would be coming to school. I left out the entrance and went over to a construction vehicle parked nearby. We'd been warned by our teacher not to touch it just for laughs, so none of the kids would come near the vehicle either. They wouldn't, because if she found out they touched it, they'd be in huge trouble. I quietly hid it in the shadow of the vehicle. The chances of someone operating the vehicle tomorrow were slim to none, because tomorrow was Sunday. Government workers had the day off. And from what my classmates had said, the thing had been left here for years now. Machines that hadn't been moved in years, you can't just suddenly start them up again. So I was almost definitively fine in this case. That's an expensive piece of playground equipment. That is a very expensive piece of playground equipment that they can't use. That sucks. The sunlight was piercingly hot, and my head grew faint for a moment. Had the heat been this harsh the entire day? A moment of dulled thoughts like this was a moment of carelessness. I gave myself a couple hits in the head, then looked around warily. Okay. Next, how to dispose of the corpse. Alright, where are we disposing of the body? You gonna carry the body somewhere? It's heavier than you. He's an old drunk. So he probably weighs around 200 pounds. I don't think you can transport that corpse more than I don't think you can transport that corpse far at all. That's gonna be a hard one for someone who's significantly smaller than the person they're killing. The ultimate way of not creating a big beginning was to not let the corpse be found. It was even more important than killing him. Thinking vaguely, the first thing that came to mind was the swamp. How are you going to get the body there? Onigafuchi, the dreaded bottomless swamp, revered even now, that appeared in the legends of Onigafuchi village. Yes, the swamp called Onigafuchi was here first, and then the village took its name to become Onigafuchi village. In other words, this swamp was the origin of the village. No one, no matter who it was, would float back to the surface of this bottomless swamp. Everyone would be swallowed down into the land of demons below the earth. That was how the stories went. If I was trying to copy the curse, I felt that theory demanded I discard the remains and the weapon into the swamp. But they may have said it's bottomless, but I don't actually know. People say large creatures like humans produce a lot of gas when they rot, granting a lot of buoyancy. It was why using fairly heavy objects to hold people down didn't work. Come to think of it, with the curse the year before last, Rika's mother drowned herself in this swamp. And the criminal behind the dismemberment that went missing the year of the first curse too, was rumored he tried to discard the body in the swamp and drowned in it. I've never heard of the corpse coming back or them finding it. Shouldn't I choose to discard the corpse there too? I could pitch the weapon there. And then, for example, if her uncle came out on a motorcycle and attacked, it'd be convenient to get rid of the bike too. Wait, okay, he's now imagining the uncle also having a motorcycle? What? I knew Satoko's uncle generally used a motorcycle for transportation. As for the corpse... After a lot of worrying, I decided not to discard the corpse in the swamp. The drowning, suicide, and accident were rumors. Nobody knew if they actually happened, and there was no lack of false rumors about the drowning and suicide anyway. It was possible the murderer hadn't drowned them, and was still on the run. That meant no one confirmed a corpse being dropped in there and not coming back up. What would I do with the body then? It might be interesting to go with the first incident, cut him into pieces and hide him, but the preparation and work for dismembering a body is difficult given the time I had. With that out of the question, I arrived at the conclusion. Go with the orthodox method. Bury the body. But where? It was a question related to where I would kill him. Of course, I wanted to keep my time and proximity to the body at a minimum. With that in mind, I'd want to dig a hole to dump the body in beforehand and make the location of the act and the hole close together. Yeah, so presumably his backyard in a garden, deep. Yeah, ideally he has a garden he's dug up and you can just dig a little bit deeper, but digging into, I don't know whether there's like sand, clay, rock, like what you're digging into, dude. And it's gonna be hard to dig down deep enough that the body's not gonna rise to the surface or make a smell, because you gotta dig like 6-8 feet. Good luck, dude. Alright. The choice of where to plan the crime, that I needed to be careful and thorough with. It had to be somewhere no one would witness it, and a place with hiding places for a sneak attack. I could dig a hole for the body right there. I go over the possibilities in my head of the various destinations her uncle would head to from Satoko's house. I imagined a map of the area in my head and found a place that fulfilled those conditions so easily it was almost unbelievable. A bit of a back road that went through the woods. I didn't think her uncle would go deeper into the mountains of Yagochi on a whim, but if he was going somewhere, he'd pass through these woods first. Nobody used this back way unless they had something to do at Satoko's house or one or two other places. This path was fantastically ideal as few people used it. Yeah, the problem is if you get like blood on any leaves, you got to clean out like the whole area, man. Although it could rain. If it rains, it might save you a lot of trouble. He did say it might rain Sunday. If it rains Sunday, he might be safe. I would wait for him in these woods. Would ambush actually be possible? I went into the trees and really tried hiding myself in a few places. It was extremely quiet. My senses would be sharpened here to their maximum amount. I didn't know when he'd come, but I'd wait right here for Satoko's uncle. I actually had some trouble coming to that decision. How do you know he's gonna go this way? The question arose of whether I should somehow call the man out. Yeah, that's a tough choice. Was there a risk I'd be taking by luring him here? The man made Satoko do all the shopping and errands. There's no way he's going out there normally. He seldom left on his own business. He wouldn't leave unless I worked out a plan to force him to, would he? That's the question. But any way you try to force him to come out, it leaves evidence, right? Tomorrow is the festival. Would he go out for the festival or stay inside? If he stayed inside, how would I drag him out of his house? That's right. Wouldn't he make Satoko go? Satoko goes to the festival. I would call the man. We have this. He'd call the man. He's gonna leave a phone record? Oh, dude. You don't have a cell phone? You don't have a burner phone? That's not gonna work, my dude. This is the police station. We have the young lady from her house. Could you come pick her up immediately? You didn't even have to be the police. This is the clinic? Please pick her up. That'd work too. If I claimed to be the police or the hospital and told him to come and hung up, he'd rush trying to figure out what was going on, wouldn't he? Yeah, but you're leaving a phone record, you're leaving a lot. And on the other day he was visited by a probation officer. He wouldn't suddenly grumble about having to get his niece and not go. It looked like child neglect. The man had no skills useful around the house. Satoko, his slave, was an essential part of his life. Wouldn't he use the motorcycle to get anywhere, though? Like, why would he walk anywhere? Conclusion. If he went to the festival, I'd attack him on his way there or back. If he didn't, I'd lure him out by phone. If luring him out by phone was my first step, I needed to be sure Satoko would be at the festival leaving the house. It'd be convenient if I could make Mion take Satoko. She said her aunt was a district welfare officer. In other words, an ally to the probation officer. If I somehow incited Mion to take Satoko to the festival, well, being who she was, she'd use that fact and get her there. Satoko should just take a break and have fun at the festival with everyone. She should have a good time, reminisce on our former peaceful days, and when she went home, everything would be over. That would be the best outcome. With that decided, I needed to dig a hole somewhere in the woods to hide the body, so it wouldn't stand out, so it wouldn't be found. Someplace no one would see me while I was completely exposed and as I buried the corpse. I wanted it to be close to the scene, but it naturally grew further away. Deep in the bosom of the Black Forest, the voices of the Higurashi were the only sounds here, informing me people shouldn't indiscreetly set foot in this place. Digging a hole, huh? With so many tree roots crawling around the ground, it would be far more difficult than I'd envisioned. I snuck a gardening spade out here in my bag, but that wouldn't be enough. A small spade? Dude, good luck. Like, the shovel? Like, the small shovel that you can fit in, what, like the hand shovel? That's not gonna work, man. As he looked into various approaches, I managed to find a place I could dig into. Tomorrow I'd bring a real shovel from the storeroom at home. I'd manage with that. I wondered how big a hole would have to be to fit a human all the way into it. I'd probably have to dig pretty deep down. If I was slipshod in these efforts, I'd let a beginning occur. I absolutely couldn't allow that. Use any amount of time you need to. I mustn't spare an effort to utterly erase him. I glanced at my wristwatch. It was a little past 6. It's probably all I was going to get done here today. I really wanted to dig the hole in advance tonight, even if it got dark out, but Mom would be upset if I stayed out late. It wouldn't be good to come off as suspicious to my parents. And taking a shovel off into the woods isn't suspicious? I needed to go back home and give Mion a call soon. I needed to get her to promise to Toko to take her by tonight. After that, today would be done. How do you know this guy's going to go anywhere? I swear, if he takes a motorcycle anywhere, that's not going to work, right? Done. Would it be, though? Was this really everything I could do to prepare right now? I decided where to kill him. You came up with a mediocre plan as to how to kill him. I decided, of course, how to dispose of the body. I didn't decide on a time, but I'd play that by ear. I didn't have a way to decide that. Was that really all? Was this really all right? Have I overlooked anything? Yeah, he could use his motorcycle. Would this really go how I planned? After all this, worries started welling up one after another. It was only natural I'd be anxious. This would be the first and last big job of my lifetime. I couldn't allow failure, and I had no experience. This is my first time. I didn't have the know-how, the knack. It was only natural I'd be anxious. The dark clouds of unease told me nothing would be the easiest way. A truly pathetic suggestion this late in the game. Have you forgotten how miserable Satoko looked? From the outside, it might have looked like I was resolute, but deep in my heart, my knees were shaking loudly. I'd never actually won a single fight to my satisfaction. Could I really kill someone? I might have been planning an ambush, but my enemy was large and far older than me. He had a scary face and looked like he was well accustomed to fighting. Could I have... All the pieces before and after the murder were perfectly planned. Was the actual murder the most important part? What unsettled me the most? I mean, there's a bunch of holes in this plan, but it's okay, dude. He's confident that he can plot a perfect crime in 5 minutes, so... Why not? All my preparations, all my perfectly concealed machinations. If I didn't successfully murder him, they amounted to nothing. True. If you fuck up, it's not worth it. Damn it. After coming this far, you're pathetic, Keiichi. If you start to have these kinds of second thoughts, your ulterior motive will be obvious. Is that what you're going with, dude? Is that what you're going with? Let's go home. Go home and calm your mind. Tomorrow will be a juncture in your life, the likes of which graduation, employment, marriage, and childbirth couldn't hold a candle to. A day of murder. To kill someone for someone else's sake. And with that day behind us, we could take it back again. He's just a little bit obsessed with her. Those mild, spring-like days we never thought would stop, those safe, peaceful, fun times. I pedaled my bicycle hard to get back home. I felt somehow unsteady, like my body and soul weren't in alignment. A subtle shift between where the tips of my hands and feet really were and where I felt them to be. My vision was distant and narrow, as if the great barrier I risked my future life on had nothing to do with me. An unreal sensation. How could I put it? Everything was so far away. Fine. Feel your unease permeate you, Keiichi Maebara. If that will turn your timidity into meticulousness and allow you to act with greater caution, it's actually an important emotion to feel. This feeling I had never went away that night. The feeling of committing one of the great taboos might be fun. Or maybe not fun, but I can definitely see why he's nervous. It was the first time I'd be calling Mion's house. That's what he's going with. That's a good reason to be nervous. I searched for her in the phone book the school gave me and dialed a short phone number, the kind unique to remote places. It was around dinner time. She'd probably be home. But as I started to think nobody would respond, someone finally picked up the receiver. Hello, this is Sonozaki. Oh, sorry for calling so late at night. Is this Mion? May I ask who's calling? It's me, Keiichi. Ah, okay, Kei-chan. It's pretty late. What's up? She seemed to be in a weirdly good mood as she drew her syllables out. Right, it's the night before the festival. She's probably with her family having drinks. Sorry for the late call. Do you have time right now? Sure, what is it? It's about Satoko. I heard her draw a small breath on the other end. She's in a bad spot. I hope she's okay. The scent of sake had completely disappeared from her voice. She can't be okay. You saw too, didn't you? What she's like? She's completely worn out from all the abuse. We failed her all this time, and she's become like that. This is how you're starting with? We didn't fail her. Everyone tried their hardest to help her. We didn't come up with anything. We couldn't save her. In the end, we couldn't do anything about it, and now she's become like that. I guess you're right. All I did was watch after all. So, well, at least... Couldn't we at least have fun for one night? Let her have fun? She's been battered lately, you understand. That's why I want you to take her to Watanagashi Festival tomorrow. I don't mind, but why? Why? I want her to give her a breather for the festival night, you know? Even if it's just one night, if she can get away from her evil uncle, I think she'll be happy, even if it's for a little while. Yes, but why? Why? Why what? I was having difficulty understanding what Mion was asking me. She's asking why not you and why her, because it's a stupid question. It's a you're asking a stupid question. It's like, can someone take her to the festival? What's wrong with you doing it? Why? Well, I mean, why don't you bring her, Kei-chan? Why do you need to ask me to do it? Mion was persistent about odd things. Odd things, but it's a good question. It's like, hey, I don't think our friend's doing well. Can you take her to the festival? It's like, why aren't you taking her? Are you busy? No. Mion was persistent about all things, but maybe it's better to say she's sharp. I think it's a natural question. If one of my friends asked me to do something for them that they could easily do themselves, I'd be like, why are you not doing this? Like, hey, I thought it'd be a great idea if we did this. Why don't you do it? And the answer should usually be, like, you're busy or something, but what is he going to be busy with? Mion's one of his friends. Reina's one of his friends and is going to be at the festival, and his other friend, Rika's also going to be at the festival. Like, have something to do tomorrow. I can't make it to the festival. So I wanted you to take Satoko for me. Something to do? It's nothing major. I'll finish quickly, but I might not be able to meet up with you all on time tomorrow. Just say on time. Hey, Mion. Could I leave Satoko to you for tomorrow night? Mion took a long time to give her reply. I got the feeling Mion had been acting weird for a while now. I mean, she's acting a little bit unusual. That's fair. Like she was flustered by emotions or something. Thanks. I do. No. Huh? Was that a sob? Mion? Are you crying? I said no. I don't want to. I don't want you to push this onto someone like me. Well, I'm not trying to push anything onto you. It's just for tomorrow night. That's a lie. What? Mion, what's she talking about? Saying it's just for the night of Watanagashi. And it was forever. Liar. I guess we're even, huh? I couldn't keep the promise I made with you. I left her alone all this time. I had no idea what to say to that. Mion was clearly talking to someone other than me. I didn't know who. All I could do was listen to her in a daze. He never came back after that. He called me again to push her onto me. You're so unfair. Hey, you're Satoshi-kun, aren't you? Mion, what are you talking about? When I said her name, whatever spell was on Mion was released. She is seeing Keiichi as the ghost of Satoshi. Just feeling guilty about not having fixed the problem. Sorry. It's nothing. It's just that I got a phone call. A lot like the one you're making right now, a long time ago. Was it from Satoshi? Mion didn't answer. All I could hear were sobs coming through the receiver. Sorry, I think I'm a little tipsy. I got weirdly emotional. Sorry, I probably scared you. I had no idea how it happened. So is it possible that Satoshi knew he was going to be disappeared and asked for Mion to watch Satoko? I had no idea it happened, but I'm pretty sure that last year on this very day, Satoshi called Mion and told her to bring Satoko to the festival. And when she asked why he needed her to do it, he replied the same way I just did. Satoshi didn't go to the festival, did he? Yeah, he said he had something to do and couldn't make it. He told me to take Satoko there in his place. At the time, Satoshi said it too, didn't he? He'd leave Satoko to you? Yeah, he did. Just for tomorrow night. The way you said it was just like how he did. Got a bit upset. Caught in a memory and all. I didn't expect this. Satoshi had given her the exact same phone call 1 year ago today. After that, Mion had said more. That he was lying. That he told her it would only be for the night of the festival. I get it. A few days later, Satoshi, he disappeared. Disappeared might have been a vague way to put it. Whether he ran away or not, Satoshi left, abandoning Satoko. Yeah, he didn't transfer, run away from home. He disappeared. And then an idea far more indistinct than even fog crossed my mind. He made the exact same phone call as me last year. Why would Satoshi make the same phone call? If, in the truest sense, he really made the exact same phone call as I am right now, then the incident where the ant was beaten to death, could it... Was Satoshi... What was that? Last year, Satoko had been abused by her uncle's wife, their aunt, too. Her aunt abused her the most, and on that night, in the name of Oyashiro-sama's curse, she was taken from this world. If I thought about that, everything made sense, didn't it? Last year, Satoko's aunt was beaten to death, wasn't she? Would it be impossible for Satoshi to... No, but that would mean... But then, Satoshi, he was a coward who abandoned Satoko and ran, wasn't he? How should Satoshi resolve himself to kill a person to save Satoko? It's unthinkable. I actually considered that as well. So it'd be me to Satoshi. A few days later, he disappeared on Satoko's birthday. When I first heard it, I flew into a rage. What a cruel day to have run away on. But now that I thought about it like this, the story changed completely. He probably had been even less calm than I was now. He was her big brother, related by blood, watching his sister be abused day in and out, day out. Maybe he couldn't keep calm. And that was why the corpse of their aunt, beaten to death, was so easily discovered. He lost himself in his anger and hadn't hidden the corpse. He permitted a beginning to occur. If the police conducted a full-blown investigation, it was easy to imagine they wouldn't take long to pin down Satoshi as the culprit. Wished for a return to peaceful days with Satoko and thought he achieved it for a time. He'd been driven into a corner, and he wanted to at least hold out to Satoko's birthday, but finally they nailed him. At the time, Satoshi had been carrying the savings he'd amassed to buy Satoko a giant stuffed animal for a birthday present. He'd buy the stuffed animal as a gift and then get caught. Or he'd use the money and disappear. That was the choice he'd been forced to make. And he decided not to make Satoko the sister of a murderer. If that was the case, it must have been an unspeakably bitter decision. All that money saved to see Satoko happy, used to make her sad. And he used the savings and disappeared. To Tokyo, if the rumors were true. Was that how Satoshi disappeared? I don't know. Uishi guy seems to think that way, though. Uishi. Had he been slowly driven into a corner by that repulsive man's pig-headed pursuit? The circumstantial evidence is all there, but I think your deduction is wrong. They caught some crazy drug addict somewhere in the prefecture. He turned himself in for the crime. Right. The deviant had confessed and the incident was solved. They said he was really just a crazy person and had no ties to the city. No relationship with Satoshi, of course. I mean, I have a hard time believing the guy would lie in Satoshi's place. You couldn't just arbitrarily decide like that. You never knew where or how humans are tied together. If that guy took the blame, it was the perfect crime. Of course, it was a perfect crime. There would have been no reason for Satoshi to vanish. That's his assumption now. It's not a bad assumption. I don't think Satoshi had the kind of money to run away. The day he withdrew all his savings, no matter how I tell this, nobody believes me, but that stuffed animal he was buying for Stoko, it was gone from the display. Sold. Ooh, he actually bought the animal. It must have been Satoshi. Wait. If he didn't use the money to flee and bought the animal, he would have gone back to Satoko, wouldn't he? It seems unbelievable he'd buy it and then disappear without having given it to her. Yeah, so I don't know what happened. It'd be one thing if he had the money, but if he used all his savings on it, he'd be totally broke. You can't live a life on the run without money in this world. Yeah, you need money somehow. I didn't get it. If he bought the animal, then he didn't run away. After all that, I understood Satoshi less and less. He bought the animal but disappeared all the same. The two of us fell silent. I couldn't remember how we even got on the topic. Sorry. I think we got off topic. Satoko, right? Don't worry. I actually invited her already. What? You serious? I never went to the shrine to prepare for the festival. We started talking about getting Satoko to the festival itself, so I used the phone at the assembly hall to invite her. Her uncle was acting distant and didn't seem to care at all, but in any case, we got the okay from him. We decided to all meet up and go together tomorrow. You okay with that? Satoshi? Stupid, I'm not Satoshi. I was a little relieved. I hadn't needed to make the phone call. Satoko had already been invited to the festival, and not in a way that smelled of blood, a way to leave her uncle alone to create time for me to kill him. They purely wanted Satoko to enjoy herself, so they invited her. In the end, it was the same, but I was happy for that slight difference. Sorry, I guess I didn't need to call them. First yesterday and now today. Sorry for, saying such weird things. Just forgot about it. No, I'm the one who should apologize. Losing it like that isn't me. I'm really sorry. We apologized to each other for a little bit. Alright, I'll be going now. Good night. What did you have to do? As if interrupting our parting words, Mion struck right where it hurt. The answer is some annoying chores. Or is it like with Satoshi, where can't say. Stupid. I keep telling you I'm not Satoshi. Yeah, I know that. I deflected her with a response that wasn't really an answer. Mion didn't hound me anymore after that. Alright, this time for real, good night. I don't know why you're giving me the same phone call as Satoshi-kun did, but never mind. Sorry, good night. I'm hanging up. Like... Satoshi Hojo, just who are you? I scorned you as a coward who ran, abandoning his sister. I thought you didn't have the right to call yourself her Nini, but now I didn't know what to think. Oyashiro-sama's curse on the 4th year, their aunt's death and Satoshi's disappearance. Is it possible? And now me, trying to carry out Oyashiro's curse on the 5th. Oddly enough, what I was going to do overlapped perfectly with Satoshi the day before the curse. That wasn't all, though. If we start back from Satoko being abused, I'd have been overlapping with Satoshi for days already. When I talked to Mion before, she asked me if I was Satoshi. If that was the first impression a third party like Mion got, it was probably true. As Satoshi had accomplished, I would succeed in the murder. But the extent to which we overlapped, that was it. Not planning to buy her a big fluffy bear? Not planning to disappear? Planning a different way to dispose of the body? I was far calmer than Satoshi, and more calculating. I could actually grow calmer and the more enthusiastic I became. That's why I wouldn't follow in his footsteps. I'd snip him cleanly out of the world and we'd get our peaceful life back. Maybe Satoshi has been with me ever since I chose to use Satoshi's bat as my weapon. Maybe even stronger than that. When I decided I'd be her Nini, maybe Satoshi had been residing within me then too. Satoshi, were you really a coward, or are you a true Nini even now? The kind worthy of Satoko's love. I never met him, never spoke to him, didn't even know his face, and yet I felt so connected to him. Never felt that way before. Most of the time our plans fall apart, so I'm curious to see how our plan goes. It looks like things are aligning nicely for us the night before the murder, but like... Note on the housewife murder case. It looks like things are aligning, but I'm not sure they actually are. Because, like, he still hasn't solved how to actually get the guy out of the house. And make him not use the motorcycle. I guess you can sabotage the bike, but, like... That makes it really obvious that something weird is going on. For the attention of those on this housewife slaughter incident case. July something, 1982. Okonomiya Police Station, 1st Investigative Division. Chief Takasugi. Prefecture Police Headquarters for the eradication of drug crime. Shishibone Branch Head. Regarding incident designated as undercover investigation. This message is to inform you that a section of the testimony records of an incident under this police headquarters jurisdiction has been found. It is thought to be related to the undercover investigation of the incident in question. The housewife slaughter incident, okay. During an investigation of the suspect who was arrested for possession of illegal drugs, there was testimony alluding to the crime in question, and it became clear it contained information that only the perpetrator could have known. Therefore, we're prepared to share this record of testimony with you. If this testimonial is to be believed, there is an extremely high chance that the suspect was the perpetrator of the incident in question. In addition, upon receiving this testimony, the head investigator of the case inquired as to the incident with the Okonomiya Police Station. But the responsible party misunderstood, and in compliance with the designation as an undercover investigation by executive order from the police headquarters, they did not explain the incident's existence to the head investigator as they should have. Because of this, they didn't realize the importance of the testimony as it related to the case in question, and as a result were negligent when combing the scene. We apologize for having effectively ignored it until now. In addition, there is a postscript stating that the suspect died while in confinement yesterday. Ooh, interesting. The suspect either killed themselves or was killed by Oishiro while in prison. Interesting. Interesting. That's an interesting hook. They're dead, so there's no one to... They don't have to corroborate or, like, be consistent with their story. Is it possible someone's covering up the murder? It's possible, right? It's possible it's a cover-up. Let's see. Sunday. The fireworks I heard before noon were probably going to announce the opening of the festival. Can you even see fireworks in the middle of the daylight? Especially when there's cloud cover? Maybe if there's cloud cover. But they also don't like launching fireworks when it's raining, so... The weather certainly wasn't festival weather, it was cloudy. The television forecast called for possible downpours starting this evening, lasting until around midnight. As long as it wasn't raining at the moment, the festival would go on. It had to open or it wouldn't begin, right? The Furude Shrine grounds were probably decorated beautifully for the big performance that only happened once a year. Many paper lanterns were hung up in the auspicious colors of red and white. The sound of electric motors at the stalls. The voices of kids running around, their happy families watching them smiling. Today was the festival of Watanagashi. Was everyone already partaking in festivities? What about Satoka? Had she forgotten her days of suffering for a few moments while smiling that brilliant smile she hadn't in so long? This would probably be the longest day in my life. It'd be a day I'd remember vividly for as long as I lived. Assuming he lives more than this day. I told my parents I'd go to the festival this evening and lounge throughout during the early afternoon. We might have lived under the same roof, but they couldn't help being surprised by the deviation from how I usually spend my time. Glancing at my parents out of the corner of my eye, I went to the front door. I tied my shoes a little tighter than normal, as if to express the firmness of my resolve in those knots. When I decided to murder his uncle, I was in such a state of excitement I almost went crazy. When I was playing the act of murder, which went directly against all the morals fostered in me thus far, I was in such a state of calm I almost thought I'd lost my emotions. And then yesterday, when I learned Satoshi made exactly the same phone call as me, I didn't know how to describe the muddled feelings I had then. And entering today, right now I lacked all the emotions I'd possessed until now. To make a simple analogy, it was the kind of feeling you might get right after you wake up, when you're still half asleep and you don't feel anything clearly. He's gonna go for it. He's going for it. Has he dug the hole yet? I had no anger towards that man for the violence he'd committed against Satoko, nor did I feel sadness towards or sympathize with her. I felt no discontent toward my friends who had awaited and watched, never reaching out with any help, and no nervousness or fear towards the day that had finally come. Yes, right now you could say I was in the best condition for carrying out a murder. When it came down to it, I'd probably need to let my violent emotions take control, but right up until that moment, I'd be like an insect, slowly, surely, and silently moving towards my one objective. And when I had my prey, I'd attack like a bullet. There's no emotion in that. Just the creeping mindset insects possessed. That sort of sneaking feeling was just the best. I'd kill his uncle like he was a worm. I had to laugh a little at thinking that way, thinking like an insect. Tug. I tightened my laces one more time and walked out the door. So how did this plan fall apart? I brought the shovel out of the front storeroom. I'd need it to dig the man's grave. The shovel was a convenient one made for camping. If I twisted it like so and split it into three, I could hide it in my bag. I twisted the shovel and dismantled it. Even though I'd done it countless times before, I had trouble for some reason. Like I was suddenly clumsy now. It's nerves, I knew why. It wasn't because I was nervous. My weak-willed self deep within me was hesitant. I knew that the act of dismantling this shovel was the first step I'd take to becoming a murderer. The last twist was surprisingly difficult, but it finally submitted before the strength of my determination. We're probably getting caught somehow. I feel like we haven't done enough work here. The area around Satoko's house was outside my circle of activity. But even just riding my bike in the middle of the day like this might seem suspicious to an observant person. I wanted to avoid meeting and talking to someone I knew. With that in mind, I chose the route to my destination carefully. I didn't mind going the long way around. With how long this day could be, I'd never want to be too careful. I could never be too careful after all, right? Still, I was fortunate enough not to run across anybody on the way to the planned site of the crime. This guy's probably gonna... Okay, if I was paranoid about being murdered today... Because remember, this guy's paranoid about the curse murdering him. I'd probably have all my friends over. Playing the thing. That way it'd be like... It'd be really hard for like one person to murder me. If they wanted me dead. So if he has all his friends over playing Mahjong, it's probably not gonna work, right? I was fortunate enough not to run across anyone, but I wasn't superstitious at this point. But it was a good omen, yeah? The place I'd dig the hole was in this grove, a little further into the woods. I was worried I might not make it to the same place as before, since there were no signs to guide me, but I arrived there smoothly, and as expected. I took another look around. Not a hint of a human presence. The air was damp, but it was comfortable in the cool shade of the trees. Remember, he has to carry the body out here. I took the disassembled shovel out of my bag and began skillfully putting it together. Then I struck the tip into a soft-looking patch of ground and pushed with my foot. The shovel would split into the earth if I put some strength into that foot. The act of doing so seemed like the point of no return, and it made me hesitate. I was just digging a hole with a shovel, but it made me gulp hard. Calm down, Keiichi. Let's do a countdown. Get it done on the count of 3, right? Alright. 1, 2... I couldn't do it on the countdown. Despite it just being sticking the shovel into the ground, I had to count down 5 or 6 times. Damn it, I'm just digging a hole. This is pathetic. And as I thought that, I put strength into my heel like I was stepping on something unpleasant and split in the sharp noise. It was only soft at the beginning. Roots and stones quickly got in my way, informing me just how hard it was to dig a hole big enough for a person. He's definitely hesitating, and he isn't even at the part where he has to actually kill someone. I'm still worried about how he's going to move the body, how he's going to convince him to actually go this way instead of take the vehicle, and like, whether or not there's going to be anyone there, because he doesn't have any information, but whatever. No decent person would come here anyway. Maybe it'd be enough to cover him with some dirt. Every time a naive thought like that crept into my mind, I bit down on it with my teeth and dug harder. I've dug enough now. I could hide him like this. Every time I thought that, I'd go down into the hole, grow disappointed at how shallow it was, and continue digging. The thin layer of sweat on my brow formed into drops and fell to the ground. My back was in even worse shape. My damp shirt adhered to my skin, and it felt so disgusting. The things I couldn't stand most were the mosquitoes. Fuck, I hate mosquitoes, man. Maybe they were attracted by the scent of sweat. The white and black striped mosquitoes would cling to me when I let my guard down. It was hot. It was disgusting. I was sticky. I was itchy. All those uncomfortable feelings surged through me in waves. Fucking hate mosquitoes, man. I swear to God. You think like, oh yeah, I went through that and I only got like 5 mosquito bites, and then you realize you got like 50. Damn it all. What are you telling me? To pack up and go home? Is that it? I hadn't yelled at anyone. It was me talking to myself, telling myself something. Why was I feeling this way and digging a hole all the way out here? What benefit would digging this hole give me? What harm would there be in not digging it? Wait, in the first place, who ordered me to dig? When I thought it over, maybe ever since grade school, or before that, my whole life had only been me doing what other people told me to do. I didn't mean it was somehow constrained, living a life just based on the commands of others. And I didn't mean I was too lazy to try and find my own road. Metaphorically speaking, yeah, it's like a road. Dig, dig, dig. I'd never been particularly physically fit. I didn't hit puberty early, and if all my classmates and I got in a line, I'd usually be on the shorter end. My scores in jump rope and marathons were the very picture of average. It wasn't like the captains of the dodgeball teams would have a passionate rock, paper, scissors contest to get me. During the kindergarten and grade school years, it felt like someone was only worth how fast they grew and how fit they were. Looking back on it, it was really uncomfortable for me. The thing that turned all that around was just a few words from my mother. Keiichi, would you like to go to a cram school? You'll better grasp what you're learning at school. It'd be more fun. The very first test I took at cram school was like a game. A lot of fun. It wasn't like the test with the same problem dozens of times in a row. Every question had a picture, almost like one of those puzzle books that came with manga. If my studies at school had been like this, it would have been way more fun. Several days later, I went to the cram school again with my mother and the enrollment paperwork. Mom and the person at the school had a long, heated discussion, so I accidentally dozed off and missed most of what they said, but I remember one point. Mom had made a loud groan, surprised at something. The cost, right? By 61? Do you mean his average score was 61 points? No, not at all, Miss Maebara. The deviation from the mean of all our cram schools across the country is 61. He's showing extraordinary numbers, even on a simple intelligence test. First, I'd like to say Keiichi-kun is extremely bright. Wait? But he doesn't have good grades at school. He has average marks on his report cards. B's, C's, D's? Is there a mistake? We gave him the Kraepelin test as well, and we learned some very interesting things as a result. Maebara-kun is extremely weak when faced with questions that lack meaning. He has no interest in simple, dull questions that don't have to do with everyday life. So, if he doesn't know what 2 plus 3 is, if you told him he had 2 apples and got 3 more, he'd understand that question. Right. For example, instead of telling him to draw a flattened, foldable cube, what if we asked him what a die would look like when cut open? If we did that, he could answer beautifully. Then the person from the cram school showed her a page from one of the exams I took. It was a paper with questions about construction. Construction questions were unusual. They were really cool, weren't they? In this question, asked to draw an unfolded regular icosahedron, a shape with 20 faces. When we rephrased it and asked him how he would cut out a piece of cardboard to create a 20-sided die, he drew the answer as though it were easy. This is not something the average person can do. Hey, have you ever read a die with 20 sides for a magazine? Extra or something? Dice only went from 1 to 6. I'd never considered that before this test there were dice with more than 6 sides. It was fun to imagine what kind of shape the die that went up to 20 would have. If I had a die like that, I could win at Snakes and Ladders against anyone. Yeah, but everyone else would be using that die too. I immediately wanted to make it. Finally, I entered to cram school. There were only 4 students in the class they put me in, which was called Select. It was the highest class, and some of my classmates were in lower classes. And when I remembered how much better they had done at things like dodgeball and the 50-meter sprint, I felt happiness well up within me for the first time. Even if I wasn't as good as them physically, I triumphed over them in other ways. It was fun at first. The more I did, the more I was praised, and my teachers at school suddenly started pampering me. It felt good. My parents were satisfied too. And if I enjoyed seeing them satisfied, the more I listened to my parents' commands, the more fun things got. That happened, didn't it? I grinned dryly in self-deprecation. Because, well, my studious lifestyle didn't end up lasting long. It was only at the beginning I enjoyed learning more and more. I gradually got along less with my friends. My classes were behind what I was learning in cram school, and I eventually stopped respecting the teachers, given that they could put me to sleep with their lectures. And, well, I was a disagreeable sort who bragged a lot about how much I knew. The ways of the world wouldn't let me remain in that state of ecstasy forever. I would do as I was told, and then I'd go above and beyond their expectations, and then they praised me. I was happy for that, and the cycle repeated like the wheels on a bike. I thought moving forward was like that. That was how life worked, like a bicycle. When I moved to Hinamizawa, I realized how inadequate it was. Some things happened, and we started saying how moving and getting a change in atmosphere would be nice. My father, he had a place he liked he'd gone to a few times to draw the nature. He started saying he wanted to bring his atelier there. With me in blank amazement, they decided to move to Hinamizawa. And after that, I met them, didn't I? The first day after transferring here, I went to the classroom with the teacher. I thought it would seem pitiful for her to bring me there, so I placed my hand on the door before she could, slammed it open, and set foot into the classroom. Clatter. The thrilling, powerful way I opened the door was none other than my own determination to try doing my life over again. Within seconds, that determination took a hard counter to the face. A blackboard eraser fell on me. Plus, there was a huge rock inside. It was a supremely painful trap someone had set up. Come on. Satoko was already beating me right from the first day I transferred? That frightened me. I was bewildered. The class was surprised too. I wasn't just surprised the students in the class were in all different grades and different genders. It was because the room felt different from the schools I knew. As I spent more time with them, my surprise continued to grow. The fresh sense of surprise never left my life, even to this day. Every day was a fresh new surprise. I never had a single boring day since coming here. The days were lively, spent with other club members. We played Old Maid with cards, with scratches on the back to cheat. We let all our passions go wild during our games. We went out as regular participants of the tournaments at the toy store in town, and many more things. Recently, during those times, there was a bento competition. It was then. That was when I saw an unexpected side to Satoko. Thinking back on it, I only ate dinner with her for 2 nights. It was such a sweet, gentle time spent, and it warmed my heart remembering it even now. I realized she was pretending to be stubborn and firm, and how brave she was, part of her heart always waiting for her Nini to come home. And I vowed to become her Nini. Satoko may have been nagging and overly critical, but she knew how to take care of someone. It might have seemed like she was taking the lead. It was actually her way of depending on another person. Even if Satoshi and Satoko's lives as siblings were confined by their uncle and his wife, they were still warm, sunny days. When did those sunny days go wrong? What mistake was made? Lamenting tragedies of the past would do no good, as I told myself so many times, but I did it anyway. Keiichi. Isn't that why you chose your own path to take back that life? Nobody ordered you to do this. You decided it on your own. You don't desire praise for this. You thought it all through yourself. You'll carve it out yourself, and you'll do it now. This wasn't a path I could see far down, not like the road parents or society could offer. It was a narrow path, dark and utterly distressing, one for which the next step would always be shrouded in darkness. But that disheartening path would keep on going forever. An unlimited path, and there was nowhere I couldn't travel. The kind of path only available to those able to imagine where they wanted to go. Don't be ashamed from breaking from the brightly lit paved road. Be proud you found your own very path to walk. And I hadn't discarded the paved road either. Once I achieved my goal, I'd go back to that bright road, and then I'd spend those average sunny days at my leisure. Crush. When I next realized it, the hole had grown so deep I couldn't believe it. Did I dig all this by myself? I think digging this much is enough, right? I put my shovel into the bottom of the hole. I drag the body here, throw it in the hole, and cover it with dirt. Even if it took time to camouflage it by putting plants on top, it'd all go more easily than digging this hole had. I glanced at my watch. It was almost evening. I hadn't realized it. I may not have felt the time passing, but digging a hole this deep must have taken a while. I took a seat on a slanted rock nearby and wiped the sweat from my brow. Now, once it got darker, I'd go get the bat I hid in the schoolyard. Then I'd make the call to lure him out. Thankfully, we didn't miss. Now, it's raining, which is probably going to be... It's going to be raining, which is going to be both a blessing and a curse. If the rain fills in the hole, it's going to suck. If we're able to fill in the hole and then it starts raining, it'll wipe away evidence. It'll wipe away or obscure evidence. It will smooth over the dirt that we've dug up, so it's harder to find. And it will wash away any of the mess we left behind, so that's going to be really good. That's one thing we can look forward to. The rain's going to help us. Assuming it starts raining around the time around when we do the murder and not before. Before is going to be awkward, I think. Make the call to lure him out, I'll do it. The number of things I needed to do to reach the moment were dwindling. I felt that moment closing in on me much more keenly than I did the passage of time. I didn't have any hesitation, but I felt that contradiction. At every step in the process, I had a few chances to hesitate, to turn back, to let myself lose my nerve. Having to endure those million temptations and wait for when the time was right. It was an indescribably slow and painful torture. I thought myself acting weak because of it, but I stopped midway through. This is fine. It was okay. I could detest the abnormal act of homicide as much as I wanted, and it didn't matter. I wasn't going to be a cutthroat killer after today. I'd pass through this strange day and go back to the world I was in before. If I fell to the level of a psychopath who thought nothing of killing, I wouldn't be able to go back to my old life. Now, this is fine with me. I didn't have to feel ashamed and hesitating to kill, because I was human. Alright, we're making some good justifications. It was funny to me. I'd be the bearer of the curse. At the same time, I was aware I was human. I exhaled lightly and stood. I concealed my presence and sharpened my senses in all directions, to search for anyone around but me. Okay, let's go. One step at a time, I'd walk my own path. A path no one forced me to walk. Let's do this. Keiichi Maebara. Cicadas made an annoying fuss. Their chorus covered up the suspicious noise of me breaking twigs underfoot, and their chorus filled the path far ahead of me, letting me know I'd be alone for some time. The cicadas blessed the path I walked, encouraging me with every last ounce of strength they had. The sky was far above. In not even an hour, the veil of night would draw near, and the sky would be tinted with dusk. And by that time, the Higurashi would let me hear their chorus in place of the cicadas. Then what happened? Would everything be over with? Would everything have ended? I said something along those lines when I left Satoka's fate to a public agency. But this time was different. I'd do it. I'd carry it out. I would end it. It would all be over very soon. Everything would end, and hello, we've never seen this shop before. Yes, when the Higurashi cried... Ooh, it's a shot of the village. A small town, and it's slowly going into evening. I like this shot. It actually looks quite nice, and it's auto-progressing, unfortunately. I did not click at all or press any buttons to advance it through that dialogue there. It just decided to show us a scene we'd never seen before and then fade to black so I couldn't analyze all the details. looked like it had one main street and like one branching street. And one like one main intersection where there was a few more. There was nobody at school. I couldn't hear the playful voices of children. And this was the first time I'd seen the school with such a lack of human presence. I quieted my breath and looked around, not wanting to be unprepared. It had gotten darker outside, but it was almost like my eyes could see more clearly now. I made absolutely sure of my safety and walked to the construction machine I'd hidden the bat behind. I had a tinge of worry, a premonition. Someone might have found the bat and hidden it elsewhere as a prank. If that happened, would I take that as an opportunity to desist? If it really wasn't there, then the sensation of chilled metal. It was there where I left it. It hadn't run away. Satoshi hadn't run away. He waited here patiently for me. Sorry for the wait, Satoshi. It's been a long time coming. Are you ready for this? Through the metallic touch, Satoshi grins at me in my mind. Gonna go for it? That's what I should be asking, you know. I did this last year already. You should be more worried about yourself. Right on, Satoshi. Let's show him a bad time. Satoshi's bat got lighter and lighter and fit into my hands like it was being absorbed. It didn't feel wrong to swing this. I could move it around so naturally, it was like an extension of my own right arm. Of course it felt like that. Satoshi and I were holding one bat together. Next, I'd make the call to lure the man out. You're really confident in this like phone call to lure him out that he won't take a motorcycle plan? And that since you don't have a cell phone, you have to call from the payphone? Like, you really think it's gonna work? It wasn't a bad time for it. My friends were doubtlessly parading happily through the stalls. I hadn't considered where to make the call from. My house and Satoko's were far apart. If I called from my house, I wouldn't make it. Could I use the school phone? As I thought, the room was locked and I couldn't get in. Shit. I'm so naive. You should have at least figured this part out. I couldn't call him. And just for that, was today all over? Sorry, Satoshi. And as I cursed my own naivety, a miracle occurred. A bicycle came into the schoolyard. It was a familiar middle-aged man, the one from the Forest Service field office. What, wasn't today Sunday? Was he here to pick up something he forgot? This is bad, you have a witness now. The officer went around back and felt around his pocket, and then unlocked the door and entered. The best possible coincidence? It had to be Satoshi who saved me. The bat, just through my contact with it, told me this was the chance I couldn't allow to slip by. The sections for the forest office and school were neatly separated. I felt the man head into the forest office storehouse, which was so far in the back, students weren't allowed in. The door didn't match its fittings well, so it didn't close all the way, and the gap in the door slowly opened as if to lure me in. I took a deep breath and went in. I tiptoed along silently and stealthily, made it into the teacher's lounge. It was the only place with a phone. As I held my breath in the teacher's lounge, I heard the Forest Service officer walking back over. Then the back door clattered shut and was locked. I glanced out at the window at the schoolyard and watched as the man got on his bike like nothing happened and rode out to the school gate. The school once again empty, becoming deathly silent. I waited for a bit to make sure that silence was the real deal, then reached for the phone on the principal's desk. I fished her house phone number out of my pocket. The number in the class directory for Satoko had been the one from their house now, where she lived with her uncle. I touched the dial with my fingers and then thought for a moment about what to say exactly when he picked up. Despite how many times I'd gone over it in my head last night, now that I had my finger on the dial, it started to seep out of my mind like a cracked bucket leaking water. We're going for it, oh my goodness. We're going through all the motions, but where will it fall apart? Will he take the motorcycle? How far along the path? Did we really time how long it took to walk or run this distance? Simple would be best. More importantly, to say it straight and not sound suspicious. I counted off 3 heartbeats and spun the dial. It is actually one of the spin dial phones. They're in the 80s, so that makes sense. Oh man, making this phone call would... I don't know about you guys, but this would be like the most nerve-wracking phone call. Holy shit. I'm expecting him to like panic. We're gonna at least have like some essay or some long delay with him, right? How can Satoshi be so damn calm about this? The call sound. Would Satoko's uncle pick up? Now of all times, the hope that he wouldn't pick up, and the feeling of doom in the knowledge I couldn't save Satoko if he did. If he didn't, whirled in a vortex. How do you know Satoko's gone already? Hello? It was the voice of a grumpy man like he'd just woken up. He picked up. Hello. Say your name so I know you're Hojo, asshole. It would be terrible if I got it wrong. I made up my mind, but I had all the initiative on my side. Here we go. This is the Shishibone Okonomiya police station. Am I speaking to the Hojo residents? I was changing my voice, but did he really think I sounded like an adult? Would he believe I was the police? Yes, this is Hojo. We currently have your daughter here with us. What? Satoko? What did that brat do? He fell for it. I could tell by how tense he was that he didn't doubt my words. I can explain the particulars once you've arrived here. Would you mind coming to the station right away? Right now? I already took a bath myself, so I don't really want to go out like this, though. What? You don't want to come because you already took a bath? Right away. The heck did she do? I'll explain once you're here. I'll be waiting. Thank you for your assistance. 1 second. I don't know where the police station is. Where am I going? Okonomiya police station? I don't know where it is either. Aren't you from around here? Why don't you know that? A greasy sweat came over my body. Eventually, just as I was about to choke, he spoke. Oh, next to the fire station, right? That's pretty far. Thank goodness he remembered what was over me. He said that's pretty far. He's gonna drive, dude. I didn't care where the police station was. Dude, like, if it's any distance that he thinks is far, he's gonna drive. Heck, he might even drive anyway. So long as he left his house to get there. We'll be waiting here. Oh, wait. Who am I asking for once I get there? What's your name? On top of that, he wanted to know my name? Just leave your goddamn house already. Mabaishi. Excuse me. That was close. I almost thoughtlessly told him my real name. Dude, you gave out a name that's similar to your own. Alright, we've seen a crack. He didn't have the script down for calling someone to the police station down. I managed to change the last syllable of it, but I put the receiver down like I was running away. My fingers were trembling and I was soaked with a tepid sweat. I wasn't just nervous about the phone call. With that call, everything had been put into motion. Dude, but you need to act like... How are you gonna hit him? Are you gonna knock him off his bike? I left the school. It was locked before, but it was easy enough to open from the inside, but I couldn't lock it again after I left. In terms of being thorough, I wanted to lock it, but I couldn't waste time going back to the teacher's lounge and looking for the key. I needed to rush back as fast as I could and ambush him. I zoomed back to the scene on my bike. If Satoko's uncle got out of town before I got there, everything would be over. He'd learn there was no one at the station named Maebashi, and things would get messed up. As I returned at full speed, I passed a family wearing yukatas. They must have been on their way to the festival. Many people in Hinamizawa knew my face, though I didn't know theirs. Even just passing by them like this made me uneasy, but I didn't generally come around here, so those living in the area may not have known much about me. It didn't matter, though. I needed to get back as fast as possible to control my breathing and ambush the man. Did you, damage the motorcycle? I hid my bike in a thicket and picked up the bat, which I left just hidden in the shade. And then I held my breath, waiting to see someone. I wondered if he still hadn't gotten here. Or maybe he went out right after the phone call and passed by here already. I couldn't figure out which it was, and was set upon by an indescribable impatience. I mean, you're gonna have to sit there and wait like 30 minutes, right? Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. If he came here already, he'd pass by here on the way back, right? The end result would be the same. It wouldn't change the fact he'd die. He'd probably be coming on his motorcycle. How would I stop him then? I figured it'd be best not to think too hard and just hit as he passed or beat him out of his seat. If he's on his motorcycle, he's wearing a helmet, so you're not going to be able to beat him in the head unconscious in a single blow unless his crash is really rough. And also, you're going to have to hide the motorcycle. Did you think about that, my dude? A lot of problems now. The path was made of pebbles, if you're assuming he's on the motorcycle. If I hit him as hard as I could and made him lose his balance, he wouldn't be able to help falling. And then the chorus of the Higurashi stopped. The sound of a bike approached from far away. I couldn't tell what sort of motorcycle it was from the sound, but I'd seen it parked before, so I'd know. It was getting rapidly closer. It was almost here. If he went just a little further and he'd cross into the thicket and appear in front of me. I'd take a moment to make sure it was him, and then when I put my plan into action. Okay, he didn't already... So what's he gonna do? Is he gonna, like, swing his bat out at the guy as he comes by? Or is he gonna, like, try to trip the motorcycle? Like, a log or something in the path? Dropping like, something in the path to trip the motorcycle might work. Make him get into a crash. But, I mean, he's driving a winding country gravel road. Like, he knows not to drive stupid fast on a motorcycle, right? The motorcycle appeared. A few easily identifiable characteristics told me it was his uncle, without a doubt. Was it really him? Was it really his uncle? Was it really her uncle? I wasn't making a mistake, was I? I looked at the characteristics again. Color, shape, and most of all, the man's clothes. And face. Those last feelings of hesitation, I did away with them. You can make out his face, he's not wearing a helmet. Satoko, now Nini will end it, okay? Closer, closer, the bike came closer. Let's go. Satoshi? Yeah. Whoosh. I jumped out of the thicket. I used my shoulder to tackle the uncle on the bike with all my might. Wait, not the baseball bat? Ugh. He gave a dumb shout as his bike completely lost its balance. Finally it fell, the bike scattering clouds of sand. After spinning, it stopped. Her uncle tossed to the ground, didn't understand what happened, and groaned for a few moments, crouched on the ground. Those are a few moments you should be advancing on him. My breathing started to become ragged. I couldn't have this emotion. Some weird secretion crossed through my brain and nearly made me hallucinate. Her uncle was groaning. Now is the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What was I doing? All the sounds in the world cut off. Alright, this is getting tense. I don't know if he's going to succeed. I don't know how he's going to fuck up. Like, usually, Keiichi's plans screw up somewhere. He usually does something really stupid. So I'm curious to see at what point things go really wrong for him. Like, I'm expecting him to fail at some point. If he just, like, kills this guy and gets away with it, it'd be kind of weird. I mean, I wouldn't hate it. It would be kind of cool if he got away with it, too. Like, you kind of want him to get away with it, but on the other hand, you're like, I kind of want to see how he fails. Or if he fails. It's quite interesting. I feel like this is a very open ending, because the story is going to end at some point, right? Like, the story's going to end. We have maybe 3-4 chapters. We have maybe 3-4 chapters to go. So we have to figure out what they're going to fill this with. If this is the murder scene, and the body disposal, then next chapter is maybe it's going to be his day of peace, and then the next day he realizes bad things happened and he's in trouble, maybe. Assuming things go well, we'll see. My mental chaos from a moment ago withdrew like a lie, and I could feel the temperature in my head cooling down. The tension in my muscles all went away like the strings they'd been attached to had been cut, and I let my hands dangle at my side. It wasn't quite like exhaustion. Have you calmed down now? Keiichi? Do you need to remember again why things got to this point today? Great. I stepped over the pebbled path, taking one step, another, and then another, towards Satoko's uncle. The more I walked, the more my breathing calmed, and the more he recovers. The more I walked, the more I felt my body cooling, calming, chilling with frost. Yes. At this moment, the guy lost permission to live. I just rescinded it, so he mustn't stay in the world any longer. If he lived any longer, if Satoko's misfortune continued, it would be my responsibility for having allowed him to live. I could feel the cooling substance going through my body, even down to my capillaries. Her uncle was at my feet now, still on the ground like an idiot, and you haven't lifted the bat? I smiled coldly at how ridiculous he looked. Ugh, that hurt. That's all it took for it to hurt. Satoko's heart hurt much more, and now you're gonna feel it. And with your life, I'll make up for her pain. I erased all unnecessary information from my mind. I prioritized the murder of this man. Execute. Wham! Utterly calmly, I delivered my first strike to the back of his head. I wanted to get at the most effective spot, at least during the first moment. I'd have to attack him while he was at his most defenseless. As if he was hit in the head, he'd cover his head. It was a defensive reaction all humans made like machines. He used both hands to cover his head so he couldn't pick himself off the heap he was in the ground. Like pounding a caterpillar into the dirt, I hit him over and over. If he covered his head, I'd hit him in the side. If he covered his body, I'd go for his head. If he rolled over, I'd strike his feet, his knees, his elbows. I didn't care where anymore. Just by delivering one blow after another, I induced panic in him. I retained my overwhelming advantage, but hadn't done nearly enough to deliver a fatal wound. Ah! He's making noise. Her uncle skillfully pulled himself off the ground and started to run like a fleeing rabbit. It wasn't a judgment he made after seeing my face and deciding whether to fight me. Right now he was fleeing by instinct, trying to escape from the threat that had presented itself. A counterattack from a more physically capable uncle was what I was most concerned about. He may have run, but it wasn't all that unlucky. The odds were in my favor. The uncle didn't run towards people, but off the path into the woods. How pleasant, he'd run in a direction where nobody else was. He's fleeing in a strange geography like a rat, instinctively running into tight spots over and over. Yes, he's no longer human. He was a rat, but you're also 14. Can you catch up with him? The blood vessels in my legs expanded and my total oxygen supply increased. I lowered myself to gain the most explosive velocity I could. Without breathing, I became a wind-like shadow and dashed. I crossed thickets, crushed dead tree branches underfoot, and dove through the woods like a bullet. He ran so cowardly, arms flailing as he went. After catching up to him, I didn't need so much the blink of an eye to strike him again. My senses, mind, and body were sharpened purely to kill him. This is the first time I'd felt like this. Well, this is the first experience I'd ever had trying to kill someone. It felt natural continuing to do this for the first time. And that meant I had this much talent for killing. Perhaps the act of killing was so simple anyone could do it. I didn't struggle or grow tired at all chasing the clumsily fleeing uncle. No matter how much he ran, it was like trying to get away from his own shadow. He couldn't get away from me. I could easily aim at his back, his shoulder, and his head, even from this unnatural stance. Each time I struck him, he wailed in pain and begged pitifully for forgiveness, but it didn't disturb my mind. I was neither excited nor plagued by hesitation like before. I felt sharp, like a carnivore. Of course, so did the uncle, who was trying to run away because he didn't want to die. He didn't want to be eaten like a herbivore running with all its might trying to get away. Despite the attacks, despite the hits, he kept fleeing without staggering. Despite the bad footing in the forest, he never tripped or anything. There was no need to admire that fact. It was simply proof he was no more than an animal. If he was chased, he'd run. Wait, how is he not tripping? Literally. Okay, well, you know what? It's semi-reasonable for people not to trip, but like, I was half expecting the standard horror trope of someone to run 5 feet, trip over literally nothing, and then have to die. Like, you know, literally every horror movie has. There's no chase. They see the villain, he attacks, they scream, they run, they get about 10 meters, they trip over literally nothing, or a tree branch, and then they're dead, you know? If he was chased, he'd run. If he was going to be killed, he'd run. He bared his fangs at the weak, but couldn't oppose the strong whatsoever. He was lowly, vulgar, a diminutive animal. Such a puny creature, it harmed Satoko. Scar after scar to her body and mind, deep wounds that might not ever go away as long as she lived. My cold and calm emotions suddenly turned into bestial ones. My personality changed into something specialized for murder, purely to devour the diminutive animal before me. He gave a puny shriek, covered his head, and ran. I'm impressed by how much you can run. Fine, run as much as you like. I'll be your death. I'll choose the moment at my leisure. Your legs will hurt, your lungs will feel about to burst, your head will hurt from lack of oxygen, and if you feel the pain has become worse than death, by all means, stop any time. Without turning back, suffocating on his terror of the approaching death, he just ran shamefully onward. Dude, he could be running to somewhere useful. He could be getting out of the grove. He could be getting out of the grove you're in. Like, you should really try to hurry this up. There is a concern here that you run into town and someone sees you. He ran, but he was chased, his head bashed with a metal bat, sweat and drool flying everywhere, blood clinging to him. From his mouth came the sounds of coarse, irregular breathing and high-pitched screaming that verged on crying. And pleas for forgiveness of someone I don't know who. Each and every second was a second of atonement I granted him. He's making noise, dude. You have to stop him. Run. Then fall, moan, and die. Where did you crawl out of anyway? You were never here before. If you were never here, you never should have shown up. If you never showed up, our lives would still be fun and enjoyable. We would have gone to today's festival, waited for each other, and gone to the shrine laughing. We would have been playing amongst the stalls right about now. We'd be browsing the strange food stalls you only saw at festivals, trying to get prizes from goldfish skipping, ring throwing, or target practice. Mion would surely make it into a competition. We as a club would have a grand time. And everyone would have been cheering for Rika's dedication dance. It is dedication dance. Everyone would say how fun it was and would give us energy for days to come. Fun, enjoyable, and funny. Warm time spent with friends. And that would have happened, but it didn't, and now it's all smashed to pieces. There was no doubt that would be what the world was like if you never showed up. You were the obstacle, the mistake, the heresy in that world. But I'd correct that mistake now. I'd erase you and make it so this last week never happened. Tonight was the Watanagashi festival. The holy night where just taking one life was permitted in the name of Oyashiro-sama's curse. It looked like the Higurashi stopped crying at some point. When the Higurashi cried, everything would end. Wow, what a coincidence. Higurashi When They Cry is the name of the series, and we're finally getting title drops. And the Higurashi silenced. Lowly one, the hour of atonement is at an end. The Higurashi have stopped their crying, and thus it is the end. The end, the end. You don't have to run anymore. Die with those dirty brains of yours smashed everywhere. Lightning and thunder struck like an explosion. It was so loud it shook the ground, and I smelled gunpowder. The response I got this time was clearly different from the one before. The metal bat crunched into the crown of his head. It was like the top of his head had caved in. The bat felt like it was biting him. Ooh, we got him! We got him! We got him! Good riddance, Satoko's uncle, but this is murder. Don't actually kill people. It had been the final killing act that visited him. When I didn't overlook the opening, he laughed as his knees gave out from under him. I remained alert for a few moments, and then thud, thud, thud. He planted both knees in the ground and fell forward, burying his head in the ground. I've been holding back my ragged breathing, but it now all came out of me like a dam bursting. My head was dizzy and light. Unable to maintain my balance, I leaned against a nearby tree. The uncle didn't try and guard his head any longer. After a disgusting sort of spasm, he stopped moving. Did I get him? Did I get him for sure? I fought back my exhausted urge to fall over where I stood, and drew toward him carefully, bat still at the ready. It was possible he was faking it, trying to wait it out. Should I check for a pulse? I realized right away, though, how unnecessary that would be. If I thought he might be faking it, I'd just have to keep pummeling till I was satisfied. I fought back my breathing again. I swung my bat far above, and brought it down. Clunk. His body leapt like a bow, but he didn't try to cover his head. Once again, I aimed for the head and swung. His reaction was the same this time. After spending a few moments making his head into mochi, the hits gradually started to feel different. It started to spray a filthy, dark red liquid everywhere. That was enough. It was definite now. I had absolutely killed him. There was no sense of accomplishment, nor one of regret. I didn't feel anger towards his uncle, nor pity towards Satoko. Instead, right now, I felt like my heart had been stolen by the downpour. It had begun to rain at some point, and how comfortable it felt. The rain's nice, right? The rainwater drenched my body and dripped down to the ground. The excitement within me faded as rain washed away the grime. In exchange, my shoes were so wet they made splashing sounds. And despite abusing his bat like that, it wasn't bent very much. There were a few dents, probably from hitting the man, but nothing that would make it seem different from before. Instead, it had been stained with black, with red, with mud and blood. That itself would be evidence. The one piece of evidence needed to prove my delusions hadn't been daydreams, and that I'd ended the uncle for all eternity. Alright, Keiichi, calm your mind. The time for passion is over. Now it's time to be cold as ice. I needed to bury the body. But where was I? I'd simply followed him as he ran into the darkness. I couldn't take a guess as to how far we'd run. It was already pitch black around us, and the only light I had to go on was the faint lights of the road a little further down. It was so dark out. I hadn't noticed the darkness until now. My vision was so good I could see the man's ugly hairline. I could have counted the pores in his head. It was only now I realized how much crazy strength I mustered at that moment. I went over to the streetlight, looked up and down the road trying to figure out where the hell I was. Oh no. This was the one road connecting Hinamizawa to the town. We were unbelievably far away from Satoko's house. Had the two of us really run so far? My surprise was accompanied by the knowledge of the miraculous fact that despite running so far and making so much noise, we didn't come across anybody at all. There was a long way between here and the ambush location where I dug the hole. There's no way I could carry the body that far. Wait, aside from that, the bike the man took here was still lying in the middle of the path. That'd be an issue. The police could tell whose motorcycle it was by looking at the plates. They wouldn't just leave it at that. Thankfully, the corpse was in a dark forest. In terms of urgency, dealing with the bike would come first. I wanted to get the shovel back from where I left it next to the hole. I shouldn't drag the body there. I'd have to deal with it right here. Fortunately, the ground was like mud from the downpour and was more sludgy here than where I was before. I might be able to dig a grave quickly here. Dude, Crazy. Of course, my bike was where I left it too. It still wasn't over. Homicide had only been half my goal. The other half would be as important as the first. I had completely hide the body, not allowing a beginning to happen. Good luck. See, we've already screwed up, right? Now the good news is, the bicycle might go in the hole. We might be able to hide the motorcycle. Take the motorcycle through the hole for the body. Cover it. The motorcycle obviously doesn't emit much of a smell. Because, you know, it's not a fucking corpse, so it doesn't matter how deep it is as long as no one can find it. So, the motorcycle we can hide. I think we have that problem solved. The body is a problem, though, because we don't have a backup plan. I would erase the man like he never existed and regain the peaceful times we had before. I bent my head backwards and calmed my mind further. Oh, drink time. Alright. Delicious. The big water droplets struck my brow mercilessly. They were actually quite comfortable, and for a while I let my desire have its way. After confirming I was sharp, I started running through the rain. The motorcycle was in the grass at the roadside. Considering how it looked, pelted with rain and covered in mud, it seemed like it had been lying there for a long time, but the plan was to drop the motorcycle into the swamp. That's his plan? The swamp was a bit of a walk from here. I lifted the bike up. I didn't think it would be so damn heavy. I was a little surprised. But once I had it upright, it was easy to roll it along. Pushing this thing all the way to the swamp was not something I wanted to do. Use the hole for the body. I could no longer ignore my exhaustion. It warned me numerous times how far away the swamp was. I wonder if I could ride this motorcycle well enough. Once I got it going, it'd be the same as a bicycle, right? Wouldn't it get me to the swamp quickly? A plan suggested by exhaustion, the anxiety at getting on a motorcycle for the first time went through. I turned the key, and then you just pick the pedal, right? Yeah. Yeah. Vroom. It's on. And then I gripped the handlebars, first the right, then the left. Ah! I twisted them too much, the bike lurched and did a wheelie like an angry horse. I lost it, but it was just a problem of how much torque to apply. Let's try that again. This time slowly, gently. He hasn't done anything to the body yet. This time it went well. It was strange to be on a two-wheeled vehicle that would go even if I didn't pedal. Very odd, but I got used to it quickly. Mion told me you could get a scooter license within a day, and she was clearly right. It was pretty easy. I needed to throw the metal bat into the swamp too, but I didn't know how I'd pack the bat on the motorcycle. Without much choice, I stuffed it in the back of my shirt, feeling like a ninja carrying a katana. I hope you clean that fucking bat off, my dude. I put the tip down the seat of my pants and hunched over so it wouldn't fall over. I got back on the bike, and this time, without any difficulty. I carefully pressed the button labeled light, and a rather strong light came on, illuminating the way forward. Probably shouldn't have turned it on, but I didn't have a way of seeing, and I had zero confidence I could ride through this darkness. As the rain came down on me, I maintained a precarious balance and inched my way towards the swamp. Along the way, I came across a few people who seemed to be returning from the festival, but none of them had interest in me. They were either soaked with the rain and hurrying, or had their umbrellas low and their heads down. Yesterday, I might have been wary of passerby, but right now, it didn't seem to be much of a cause for concern. Damn, like, if you can fit a body in, you don't need to bury a bike that far down. I'm surprised you didn't just bury the bike. In fact, it'd probably be less suspicious to be riding out in the open like this instead of sneaking around. More and more, though I started to think of that as naive, brought on by my exhausted state. He's clearly screwed up here. I climbed a steep hill, and on a bike, the hill would have put me out of breath, but I had enough to accelerate. I just had to accelerate to climb the entire thing. Motorcycles sure are convenient. For a moment, the lights illuminated a sign before I passed by it. Onigafuchi Swamp. Good children do not play around here. It wasn't like the way to the swamp was cordoned by a metal fence or anything. Parents and teachers get mad at you if they found out you're playing at the swamp, but some of the bad kids in my class apparently snuck out here sometime to see the giant crayfish in the place. They talked about it before, how they'd go to the candy shop and buy some pickled squid, then just tie it to a fishing line and throw it. And all the crayfish would come running. Once I got up to the bank, there was a tiny ritual shrine and traditional ropes on a tree. As it swallowed the downpour whole, the blackened swamp waited for me. If I slammed on the accelerator like I was now, the thing would fly straight into the middle of the swamp. I had to be careful not to fall in with it. If I drowned and disappeared, what a stupid ghost story that would be. On the night of Watanagashi, the Toko's uncle's corpse was found in the thicket by a road leading to town, and Keiichi Maebara went missing. People would whisper I'd been demoned away. The 5th year's curse would be a half-baked wood. I got off the bike, twisted the accelerator as hard as I could. I let go when it seemed like it would drag me forward. The bike shot off a cliff and was swallowed down into the swamp, leaving a fainter splash than I'd ever imagined. Its surface was pummeled by the downpour, and the muddy, filthy water was flowing into it. I couldn't even make out the bike I'd just thrown in there. It was pretty heavy after all. It'd be pretty quickly engulfed by the soft mud at the bottom of the swamp, and be pulled deeper and deeper until it reached hell itself. I felt no reluctance whatsoever in throwing the man's motorbike down the land of demons, but I had a tinge of regret about the bat. I washed it with muddy water and the gore sticking to it came off easily. I sort of shared today's events with Satoshi, so I wanted to give it a quiet place to stay. That's how I felt. I started to feel more like returning it to the locker so it would continue to keep watch over Satoko. Satoshi, I probably, misunderstood you. Satoshi listened quietly without nodding. I'm absolutely convinced now you were the one who beat your aunt to death last year and saved Satoko. I always scorned you and called you a coward who ran, but I was wrong. For the rest of the world, some deviant was behind that incident, but I know. That was something you did for her, and then you disappeared. You got back the peace and lost it within a few days. So I swear I'll live life to the fullest. Live it enough for both of us. I'll live on as though this week, this day never happened, but I'll never forget this short time we shared together for as long as I live. I didn't know what expression Satoshi made as he listened, but as someone who protected the same girl, I felt like he smiled and gave me his blessing. And then, my hand moved of its own accord, and the bat I hesitated to throw left my hands flying through the air. It traveled its parabolic path, spinning all the while, and the swamp absorbed it without a sound. There weren't even any ripples when it hit the surface. The surface was tempestuous because of the downpour, and the bat was long gone. For a moment I regretted having thrown it, but I realized it might have been what Satoshi wanted. You're right. I can't let myself give into emotion just yet. That's right, you have to go all the way back there. Dispose of the body, hide the shovel, and move your bike. Go back home. I'd return for my shovel, get on my bike, dig a hole to hide the body, and bury it. It seemed like a simple sequence, but I felt extremely exhausted and had to do it all tonight. Satoshi left me only the advice I needed to finish this up soon, and then fell silent for eternity, disappearing at the bottom of the demon's abyss. I returned to the path I ambushed her uncle on. My bike was hidden, sleeping in the brush. I stood it back up. My whole body felt heavy, but I needed to finish this by the end of the day, even if I had to whip myself to do it. Oh, I forgot something. I didn't just come here for the bike. The shovel's here, too. Not good. I'm zoning out. Every once in a while, I let my guard down. My vision would almost go black. Pull yourself together, Keiichi. It was still not over. I went into the grove of trees and looked for the hole. Unfortunately, I hid it deep in the forest, not wanting it to be seen, and now everything was black. I couldn't see shit. I reawakened my fading consciousness and realized how big this annoyance was. Can't be serious. The sweat the rain washed away before came back to my skin. Deep in the forest where the lights could never reach. The fact that it would be pitch black had been completely uncalculated. With this much darkness, even if I had been able to kill him right away like I planned, I don't know if I could have buried him without a problem. What do I do? I couldn't find the shovel tonight. If I forced myself to go deep into the forest, I'd lose even my sense of direction. I might actually get lost in there. It might have been an exaggeration, but it was fully possible I'd trip over a tree root and sprain a muscle. My house's storage room. There was another shovel, the same fold-up kind. Couldn't I go back to the house, get the shovel, and give up on finding the shovel tonight? It's not as though the name Maebara is written on the shovel, but it seemed like an unusual item from an important variety store made in another country, so I didn't want to leave that shovel here, but in this darkness I couldn't do anything. I should give up and go back to the storage room. There's an electric lantern in there. If I use that for light, I could look for it. But it was so extremely dark, could I light the way with just the lantern? The light of a lantern in this dark night? I couldn't discard the possibility of it drawing eyes, and I doubted if I could find the shovel with the lantern's feeble light. I left the body there for a long time already. My sense of fear, dulled through excessive exhaustion, finally reared its ugly head. For now, the most important thing was to hide the body. A shovel being found wouldn't be a big deal, but a corpse? If they found that, I'd share the same fate as Satoshi. First, I go back to the storage room at home. Your parents are home, dude. Your parents are home. They're going to be asking questions. Then I'd get the lantern. Shot in this dark, I might need light to dig a hole for the body, too. And I'd get the other shovel. I'd deal with the body first thing. Once that was done, I'd come back here, find the shovel, and bring it back. I had to at least do that much, but I was so tired. Complaining is getting me nowhere. If I start getting complacent, everything will have been for naught. At some point, I sat down. I gritted my teeth and endured, lifting my heavy hips. The night was young. Of all the nights I'd experienced, none had ever been this long. When would it all end? The night was young. So this is... We have a problem here. We gotta hide a body. And we fucked up with the murder, but... The only good news is he's quite a distance from his house. It's the only good news. Yeah, the big problem though is that the cops are near the road. The cops are probably going to be near the road, especially if things go as they did on any of the other nights. There's going to be a lot of cops in town doing a lot of stuff, looking at the body of not Takano. Oh shit. What's his name? The photographer guy. He's normally found on the road. Oh shit. The photographer is usually found on the road to the city. Shit. Dude, you're in trouble. The police are going to be swarming the area. That's not good. The police are going to be swarming the area. This is not good for you, my dude. The lights at home were dazzlingly bright. Suddenly, they reminded me of how hungry I was. I checked the clock and saw it was almost 7. I thought for sure it was 2 or 3 in the morning already. It's 7 p.m.? Okay, you might be okay. I was surprised at how messed up my biological clock had gotten from this one night. There was a warm light coming from the curtains in the living room window. The worlds between here and what was beyond those curtains were so very different. If only that man hadn't shown up, I would have been in that light. Actually, I'm pretty sure he would have been at the festival. I'd still be excited from the festival, and I'd be talking to my parents about how much fun I had with all my friends. Even though they made a hot meal for me, I would have eaten way too much at the stalls, barely eaten any of it, and gone back to my room. No doubt I'd crawl into my futon and let myself fall asleep. It's 7 p.m., dude. You'd be awake. Right now, I was completely different. There wasn't a single ember of warmth from those weak streetlights. Right now, I was unconnected to any time spent with my family. There was neither warm food nor the time to allow myself to sleep. My body exposed to the cold rain, I knew I simply had to spur myself on to accomplish what I must. I realized how timid, how cowardly I was becoming. And for what purpose did I need to kill someone so badly that it was worth feeling this terrible? I'd lost sight of that purpose. I selected the fastest, most fundamental way of saving Satoko and executed it without hesitation. That man was dead. He was gone. He'd never ever hurt Satoko again. We all thought frantically for days on end about Satoko's problem, and finally, with no options, gave up. And I solved it in one night. By myself, with no one's help. Right about now, Satoko would be making dinner for her uncle, despite not knowing when he'd return, and she might be spending the night trembling in fear of whether he'd yell at her for how it tasted. But her uncle wouldn't come home. She wouldn't have to fear his wrath, nor let him make her feel sad. Or, wait, I see. I did it. I successfully saved Satoko. All I'd been thinking about for a long time was killing him. I'd forgotten the feeling that it was actually all to save her. I did. Alright, laugh maniacally. I did something good. That's right. Something good, right? I felt hot tears coming from my eyes, and that's when I realized the exhaustion I'd been feeling was guilt. The blade of guilt for a while now had been scraping away with its tip, hurting my heart. It hurt so bad I couldn't stand it. It was throbbing painfully. It hurt so much. It was so painful that I cried. I cried tears of joy at having saved Satoko. I didn't know why, really, anymore. I just cried. My tears fell and fell. As I stood there for a while, coming to terms with these warm tears, my heart was comforted a little. Alright, Keiichi. That's enough. There's nothing to regret or feel ashamed about. Both body and mind were thoroughly exhausted, and that was a fact. It was only natural I couldn't feel anything. Even tomorrow and the day after that, I might not be able to feel anything for a while. But there was one thing that was true. Indisputable fact, I saved Satoko. One day we would surely be rewarded. One day I could be proud of how distressing an enterprise I'd undertaken to get Satoko's smile back. And so that I could wait for that day, I had to put the finishing touches on this night. If I left it undone, everything I accomplished would be for naught. I looked back up at the sky, which didn't look like it would stop raining anytime soon. I rubbed my eyes and summoned forth energy from my core again. How long was I spanning it? Did I plan on spacing out? This isn't the time for daydreaming. Someone could find that corpse this very moment. The pessimistic thought was proof. The very natural emotion of fear returned to me. As I allowed the fear to spur me onwards, I went to look for the other shovel and the lantern inside the storage room. It was fortunate I remembered what it looked like around the streetlight the body was near. With how dark it was quite possible I wouldn't have been able to look for it either. I didn't realize when I left the place, so the idea of memorizing the spot hadn't crossed my mind. And that's why I had to call it fortunate I managed to get back to the body like this. It was located in a big muddy puddle. Half the thing was sunk into the swamp-like pool of water. I only realized afterwards there was an unused irrigation channel right nearby, clogged with fallen leaves and dirt. There was rainwater flowing in from there. My shoes had been awash with water for a long time. Without any hesitation, I stepped into the puddle. I mean, if your feet are soaked, like, why the hell not? Like, at this point, like, who gives a fuck if you walk in water? Well, luckily, the whole muddy stream washed it away. I couldn't leave any traces like bloodstains. The rain was like a blessing from heaven. I checked around me, paying very close attention, and turned off the lantern. It became pitch black, but my eyes got used to the darkness in a few moments, and once I managed to reach the streetlight on the other side, I was able to make out even faint lights. I stuck the shovel into the puddle right next to the corpse. The ground was looser here than I thought, and the shovel's tip slid easily into it. I had to hurry and dig. If I took too much time, I might lose my energy and strength again. Oh my god, digging in the rain fucking sucks, man. It felt almost like digging a hole in the sand at the beach. It was easy to dig, but no matter what, the muddy water flowed in, covering the hole. The digging wasn't going as well as I hoped. Yep, this is why it fucking sucks. Don't do it. I dug and dug. The water would go in. I couldn't get a sense of how deep it was. The only way to measure was to bury my own foot in the mud. I'm digging just fine, but it's alright. Don't be disheartened. Dig, dig, dig. Occasionally a car comes by and I'd hurry to hide myself in the trees. Everyone was only passing through. They wouldn't have their eyes peeled in this kind of darkness. I understood it logically, but I couldn't help but hide. What I was really scared of wasn't that one of those cars would happen to witness me here. It was the distance I could spot the cars from was gradually getting shorter. At first I noticed the splashing sounds from far away as cars drove through them. I started noticing less and less, and with the car that just passed by, I didn't notice until its headlights were on me. I felt my senses growing duller by the second. If someone were to take a peek in secret, as I was burying the body at the worst possible time, I might not even notice. The moment I thought that, I took a good look around me. I roused my half-asleep senses and searched for signs of presence nearby. What if I found someone spying on me? A carnivorous feeling snarled at me, glaring. If there was, I'd dig another hole. I'd come this far already. In order to achieve perfection, I didn't care how much more I had to pay. I didn't know what kind of face I was making at the time, but it was definitely a fervently glaring one. My five senses reached the conclusion. Nobody was present. I didn't breathe a sigh of relief, though. How long had I been digging in this mud out here? It was deep enough for it to go up to my knees. Maybe this was enough? Maybe I'd throw the corpse in as a test? I swallowed, getting my breathing under control. Despite how much I'd beaten him, I was afraid of touching the corpse. Instead, I dragged it by the feet to the hole. It took more than just a waggle and tug to do it, but of course it did. Considering the man's weight was easily 80 kilograms, I rallied all my strength and dragged him. At this point, my groundless fears that he might suddenly start moving vanished long ago. His body fit perfectly into the muddy hole. It was more than deep enough. Alright, let's bury him. Quickly. By the way, one of the reasons you bury people deep is so that water doesn't expose them. If it rains a ton, which it is right now, so you're supposed to go pretty deep, my dude. I did a perfect job of burying it. Everything will be over. He's gonna be half buried, my dude. I would hide it in the hole and none of this would have happened. There has to be enough dirt, and the dirt has to be compacted enough so that the body doesn't push up on the dirt. Come on, man. When I realized I only had a little further to go to finish things, I was racked with pointless anxiety, like a race against time. It was like I was absorbed in a delusion that if I didn't bury the body quickly, it might come back to life. This is not deep enough. Knee deep is not deep enough. That's only 2 feet.
Hello there.
Oh, hello there. In any case, in a great rush, I poured mud and dirt into the hole. If I didn't work efficiently, someone might find me here. Until now, I figured if someone saw, I'd just kill them, but not anymore. I was arrested with absolute fear. If someone saw me, it'd all be over. And as I finished the work off, it was a total mess. I drew the surface of the shovel across the ground, trying to make it flat. I was completely covered in mud at that point. The rain washed mud off my body, but not off my now blackened clothing. My body and mind were caked with panic, fear, rain, sweat, and mud. My shoulders heaving, I threw down the shovel and sat in the mud. I was so exhausted I wanted to lie down right here and sleep. It was over. This time. For real. It was over. The man was now in the bottom of the wet dirt. Right in this moment, there were traces this place had been dug up, but the rain and flowing muddy water would completely cover it within moments. It was over. How much mud is that? How much dirt is that? Is that going to be exposed by the next rainfall? I did it. I did it, you motherfucker! It actually says motherfucker here. And then I fell over backwards, face up in the mud. Raindrops pelted my face without mercy, but I didn't care. After staying for a while, resting my mind, I got up again. It was over. Let's go home. You already buried the whole thing. It's like it never happened. It never happened. There's no reason for me to stay out here and get rained on. I wobbled to my feet. I wouldn't use the shovel anymore. I considered disassembling it, but I didn't have the strength in my absolute exhaustion. I didn't really need to take it apart anyway. Dragging the shovel behind me, I headed towards the light. I stood up my bike. It had been lying in the grass by the road. I didn't know how I was going to get the still assembled shovel into the front basket. I put it down the back of my shirt like I'd done with the baseball bat. Unlike the bat, the corner was on my back, making it painful. If I relaxed my posture, it'd fall out behind me. I ended up having to carry it in my left hand and ride my bike using my right hand. I mean, I don't like riding my bike in the rain, but at least you can reasonably ride a bike with one hand most of the time. Not only was I in a state of exhaustion, it was a downpour. One hand on the handlebars, I was swaying to and fro like a drunk, but I didn't care. Even swaying like this, I got closer and closer to home every time I pedaled. I saw two lights swaying slowly in front of me. A car was approaching. Oh no, I need to get out of the way. From far away in the shadows, a car appeared. Its dazzling lights washed over me. The driver made a short honk to inform me I'm in the middle of the road. I have to get out of the way. I kept telling myself that, but not only was I riding one-handed, I was exhausted, so I couldn't do anything. Move, then! Come on, dude. Wobble, wobble. I meandered about, not going to the right or the left. The driver decided to swerve out of the way in front of me, and without lowering speed much, steadily came towards me. Its outline grew larger in my vision, and telling myself again I really needed to get out of the way, I jerked the handlebars in one direction, lost my balance, and fell over, bike and all. My whole body splayed out, and one foot got caught in the bike. This was seriously bad. My drowsiness quickly vanished, and just as a cold sweat broke out of my skin, the driver spun the wheel to the left, made a counterclockwise U-turn, and came right up to me and stopped. The driver's seat door opened, and the driver came out. Oh, you're in trouble now, dude. You have a witness, man. You fucked up so hard. Like, what are you doing, my dude? You literally just, like, almost caused an accident by driving in the middle of the street. Oh. And now people know you're out here. Oh, you're so dumb, Keiichi. Why are you fucking this up so hard? You idiot, what are you doing here? I was pretty sure someone would yell at me like that. Oh my. Look who it is. It was a woman's voice and one I knew. I lifted my face off the ground and looked at her. Takano-san. I can't believe this guy didn't disassemble that shovel. This is so bad for him. It's so unbelievably bad. Like, he's got a shovel on his back. If the police come knocking and ask questions, if Takano and the photographer aren't fucking dead, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, we saw a guy with a shovel. Who doesn't own a shovel? Yeah, who doesn't own a shovel? But who has a used collapsible shovel that's not collapsed? On the same day that a body, that someone's fucking buried, and he's coming from the town. Like, he's not coming from his house, he's not coming from the festival, he's coming from another city. Like, I don't, like, he's super suspicious. Who bikes this distance in the rain? Come on, man. It's Takano-san. Good evening. The moon is very pretty tonight, Maebara-kun. It was raining far too hard to see the moon. Takano unfolded an umbrella and smiled as she spoke. The smile was for some reason uncanny, like she'd seen right through me. Of all the people I could have met, I got the sudden feeling this was the one person I wanted to see the least. I'm pretty sure Uishi-san would have been the worst, but you know. What are you doing out so late? And you're soaked and covered in mud, and no umbrella either. What's that? A shovel? She'd come here via car. She wouldn't have known what I was just doing. And yet she smiled as though she knew everything. Calm down, Keiichi. She always makes that mysterious-looking smile, remember? Don't let her onto anything, lest you dig your own gear. Just say you were coming from town. You didn't realize the fucking downpour, but you have to get home. I remember say you were playing baseball with a golf club. Is that what the shovel's for, too? Using it as an umbrella? I should tell a good lie here. If I could just do that, things would work out. When I went with Raina to go digging for treasure at the dam, we forgot this there. And you went to get it in this downpour? I didn't think it would rain when I left my house. Well, it's been raining for a while. Oh my god, this kid's so stupid. All he had to say was like, ah, fuck. He even like, okay, so, issues with his alibi. 1, he said something that someone else can corroborate or prove false. 2, the dam might not actually be in this direction. I don't know if it is. I didn't think it was in the direction of the city. And like 3, it was an implausible statement because it doesn't match up with the amount of time it's been raining. You've been out for quite some time, haven't you? Yeah, I was wandering around. Even so, you came from that direction, didn't you? The dam is in the opposite direction. See? He's fucking up so... Like, I swear to God, Keiichi's like the worst person to kill someone. It's so suspicious. It was so obvious. Like, why is he even opening his mouth? He should have just been like, yeah, I came from the town. I'm like, fuck, I have to... I came from the town, it's fucking pouring, I'm like, fuck it, I'm just going because it's been pouring so long. That's the easiest thing to say. They're like, yeah, I was in town, it was fucking pouring, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta get home, and it's not letting up, so I figured I'd just go. Why is he muddy? He wiped out already. He already wiped out already once on his bike. Like, she might be like, why are you covered in mud? And you're like, Yeah, I already wiped out once on the road. Like, I already wiped out once. I'm fucking exhausted. It's awful. Poor, like, easy lie. He doesn't. No one can corroborate or deny it. I guess that's like might be a downside if it's supposed to be an alibi. But like, he comes from town. He's soaking wet, and he's like, "Well, fuck, I'm covered." Like, he slips and falls on the you're biking in the rain. Maybe he doesn't have a great bike. Maybe the tires are slippery. Maybe the road's a little bit wetter than he thought. He slides, crashes once, gets some dirt on him, and he's like, "Oh, that sucks." I don't know why he had to come up with an implausible lie that someone else can disprove. And that's like it doesn't even work with local geography. So bad. Takano was clearly aware something exceedingly abnormal was happening to me. And yet our character's first impulse was to lie as hard as humanly possible, just throwing things at the wall. Like, come on, man. As she played her word game, she's enjoying driving me into a corner. Maybe she had a vague guess from the situation of what I've been doing. My timing sucked to run into her of all people of all the times. The biggest question is why you had to make that stupid lie up. The damn thing doesn't make sense. Why did you not say you're just biked in from town? You were in town and you were biking back out here. And if she's like, didn't you attend the festival? You just be like, nah, I didn't attend it because that's true. I freaking hate when people make stupid, implausible lies. Like, I was hanging out with someone. Like, all she has to do is just ask Reina if that was true. At the very end, I could only be frustrated at my terrible luck. Your terrible luck? You've done so much stupid shit. Okay. Reasons? Alright, you've made terrible decisions just in the last 5 minutes. I'll lay them out for you. You left the shovel unfolded so she could see the shovel. So you had to make an excuse. So you, being the paranoid dumb fuck you are, decided to make an excuse that included the shovel in your explanation. If you hadn't made the shovel so visible by not collapsing it, you would have been safe and not had to make that impulsive and stupid decision. Number two, if you had literally just like stuck to the side of the road like literally everyone who bikes, you would have been perfectly fine. But you made a stupid decision and decided to sit in the middle of the road and then bike with one hand because you didn't collapse the shovel. That's your mistake too. Then you made an obvious lie that anyone who knows the area could disprove to someone who's lived in the area longer than you. You're like, I was at the dam. The dam's in the opposite direction. What are you doing? All he had to do was say he came from town. You're like, yeah, I wanted to wait, but it's just pouring for so damn long. And then he like did something that didn't align with the time either. Like, so he's failed on time, he's failed on location, he's failed on like he's failed on like on keeping up like an unsuspicious appearance. It's pretty bad. So why at the very end did I run into her of all people? What do you do, Keiichi? You're still holding something that could be a dangerous weapon. Will you silence Takano? Even if it would be simple to kill Takano, dealing with the car she'd come in afterwards would be a problem. I couldn't drive a car. It was completely different from a motorbike. But even if the car was here, as long as there was no proof I killed her. Yeah, and tonight's downpour without any prior planning, all by coincidence, a hit and run. As long as I didn't drop any handkerchiefs with my initials on them, they would never know I killed her. Are you retarded? People have been going by like all the freaking time. That's a terrible excuse. That's a terrible excuse. You even noted that while you were burying the body. A black flame quietly smoldered and raged in the core of my body. That's a scary look. Did I tease you too much? Takano started to laugh by herself and then, thankfully, stopped talking about it. But the dark clouds in my mind didn't go away. Leaving that aside, how long are you planning on crawling on the ground with your bike like that? Would you mind moving out of the way? If I moved, she'd leave. So I tried to get the bicycle up into the way, but twisted my ankle in it and fell over. Oh shit. There was a sharp pain in the ankle I twisted. This is nonsense. A sprained ankle now? Oh my, are you alright? Did you twist your ankle? Oh my god, he's thrown as hard as humanly possible. So 1, he crashed his bike. 2, he managed to shove his foot through the bike. 3, he's like now getting help. Like, oh my god, how much can you fuck up, Keiichi? Takano squats down and takes a good look at the ankle I kept rubbing. She compares it to my facial expression, apparently trying to gauge how bad the wound was. Can you stand? I didn't expect to, but I couldn't even stand up. It was all I could to shamelessly wriggle on the ground like a caterpillar. Takano looked at her watch, then at her car, and after thinking for a moment, opened the passenger seat door. She gave me her shoulder to stand up with. I'll take you home. I do feel bad, since it's almost like I hit you. Sorry. I wouldn't leave you here. It's a good thing I'm a nice person. Nobody good has ever called themselves a nice person, but that would have been a terrible thing to say to someone holding me up like this. I took Takano's hands and sat down in the passenger seat. You really shouldn't. There might be blood on you. There might be blood on his face, in his hair, in his clothing. This is so bad. Takano went around the back and looked at my bike on the ground. I don't suppose we could take the bike home tomorrow. I could clearly tell from her face she thought it would be a pain since it would be heavy and get her car dirty. But my bike has the name Maebara written on it. I couldn't leave it out here like this. Can you put it in the car? I sort of need it. The trunk's already full. If I put it in the back seat, it gets the seats dirty with mud. Well, given how you're already in here, it's already dirty, I suppose. I turned to the back seat and see someone's folding bicycle there already. It looked big enough to fit my bike in there as well. My expression reflected my thoughts, and the exact thought seemed to get through to her. Alright. I'll put it in there for you. I'll be really nice, but just for tonight, okay? Takano continued with her mean jokes, but she hoisted my bike and loaded it into the back seat for me. The mean jokes were one thing, but I couldn't she do something about that eerie smile of hers? And more importantly than the bike, I didn't want to leave the shovel right here. The shovel could be directly connected to the buried body and me. Sorry to ask Kara, could you get my shovel too? Takano gave me a dubious expression. Your shovel. That's fine with me. Is it important? The more I talk, the worse it gets me. Just say like, I don't know. That's how I felt, so I didn't force myself to answer. Not really. Eventually, outlasted by silence, she gave a short shrug and sighed. Alright, I understand. You need your shovel, right? You don't need to make such a mean face. Takano brought over the shovel that was lying in the middle of the road. I clutched it like I'd never let go of it again. Takano watched me with a puzzled look. SBL? Maebara? You live at the Maebara mansion, don't you? Why does everyone call my house the mansion? It's fucking huge! You have multiple guest rooms, an art gallery, and an art studio attached to your house. It's fucking huge! It's actually a mansion. It must be nice to be rich. As she spoke, Takano pulled the handbrake and stepped on the gas. After making a skillful U-turn on the shoulder of the road, she steadily increased in speed. And from the rear view mirror, that accursed place seemed to melt into the darkness. Free? What? I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. What was that? Takano suddenly tried to say something, but thoughtlessly I didn't catch it. Looking ahead, Takano said the same thing one more time. The body. How well was it buried? I thought my heart might beat out of my chest, but I didn't let it show. My lungs were squeezed. She's the person who, dude, just be like, just start laughing. Just be like, what? What are you talking about? When burying bodies in mountains like these, you have to bury it fairly deep because wild dogs will smell the corpse and dig it out. Some human bone a wild dog brings back in its mouth leads to an incident being uncovered. The police head out to a stretch of mountains. This actually happens pretty often, you know? This is what Takano's into, right? This is what Takano's into. This is actually a morbid joke she would actually make. This isn't her, being omniscient. Although he is looking super suspicious. He's looking super suspicious to the one person who fucking loves the occult and murder mystery. And murderers and shit. Pound, pound, clang, clang. Huge rusted bells started ringing in my head. Had I buried it so deep I could say it absolutely wouldn't be found? No, you buried it knee deep. The answer was no. I was in such a rush to bury him and get it over with, I couldn't deny having possibly buried it too close to the surface. Anyway. This woman, how does she know? She had just passed by here in her car by coincidence. We ran into each other by coincidence. If she'd been watching the entire thing from the trees. Once I left, she came back in her car. It didn't make logical sense. But why? Dude, you're so fucking paranoid. This kid gives away everything, but I mean, there's no way, you literally just play everything off until someone asks you very specifically. Keiichi Maebara. That's it, you need to kill her. Oh my god, are we seriously going this way? My entire body awakened, I could feel my pupils dilate. I couldn't possibly beat her to death with a shovel in such a small car. I'd use my hands to try— Dude, that's not gonna work. But she's driving right now. If I strangled her, we get into an accident? Then suddenly she turned and looked at me. What, no witty retort? For a moment I was surprised. What was she talking about? I don't know what this kid's doing. He's being so stupid and paranoid. He's making everyone suspicious of him already. He is not going to get through this day. For a moment I was surprised. What's she talking about? It would seem we're not a very good match. Takano said, disappointed, returning her gaze ahead. I repeated the words she said a few times in my head and finally realized she meant it as an off-color joke. I didn't know whether it was really a joke, but I wouldn't be able to fool her no matter how many lies I told. Right now, with her driving the car like this, I couldn't kill her. I'd have an even harder time doing it when we got back to my house. The moment we met had been my best chance, and to have missed it so easily it hurt. After that, Takano didn't say a single word. The car was completely buried in an almost suffocating silence. What kind of woman had I run into? It's Takano, dude. With everything that happened today, I managed to pull it off, and at the very end of it all, I had to go home and go back to sleep. What bad luck. As my sleepiness overtook me, the anxiety I felt steadily started to matter less and less. Dude, you don't want people to know where you were. You can't fall asleep yet. Is this alright, Keiichi Maebara? You probably shouldn't leave this woman alive. Right now I'm tired. And he passes out in their car. She stepped on the brake. I jerked against my seatbelt. That woke me up. I thought I must have fallen asleep by accident. I looked out the window and there was a big building with faint lights on. It was dark, but I knew immediately it was my house. I'll get your folks for you. Would you mind the place for a few moments while I'm gone? Don't make fun of me, please. Besides, look, I'm fine now. I can walk by myself. Oh my. You were in such pain before you had to get me to carry you. Did you want a pretty lady to be nice to you? As Takano spoke, she left the car and opened up her umbrella. The sound of falling raindrops was fierce as always. I carefully reached down and rubbed the ankle I twisted. There was still some pain and a bit of weirdness, but they weren't that bad anymore. Rather than being happy about how light the wound was, I first regretted this whole thing. If I hadn't twisted my ankle, I could have taken the option of killing Takano right then and there. There probably wasn't much doubt Takano was convinced I was involved in some sort of crime. He's paranoid and making stupid excuses. If she knew about everything happening with the Toko, she might have guessed I'd killed somebody. What? Takano opened the passenger side door for me. Sure you don't need my shoulder? I wouldn't mind doing it for you again. I ignored her and answered by getting out of the car myself. The rain was pretty intense. I got my bicycle out of the back seat. I was a bit curious who the other bike belonged to, but that didn't matter right now. I left Takano to hold the umbrella over me and pushed my bicycle up to the front door. Thanks very much. I'll be fine now. My ankle hurt so much earlier, and it still did, but it aggravated me. It hadn't even been that bad. It was really, seriously terrible luck. Alright, I'll be leaving then. Keep it a secret. We had a nice evening drive together by ourselves, okay? Especially from Jiro-san. Jiro-san? The kid who can't keep secrets. Good luck. Oh, she meant Tomitake. I suppose she calls him by his first name. His full name must be Jiro Tomitake, then. And then the other bike, the folding one in the backseat. I didn't care about it at first, but it suddenly came to mind. You're from Hinamizawa, right? The other day before yesterday, as I walked near the day I'm half asleep, Tomitake had talked to me. And the bicycle he'd been riding, it was... The bicycle in the back belongs to Tomitake, doesn't it? Takano's eyes sharpened for a moment. And why do you think that? I saw it when I met him before. The frame stood out to me. Wouldn't that be odd? Do you think it's possible for it to be Jiro-san's bike? Odd, huh? Takano, her hair elegantly fluttering, peers into my eyes. Ooh, could Takano be killing him? That's what this is implying, right? The bike implies that someone else came with her, and what's this guy's name? I keep forgetting this guy's name. Not Jiro, what's his last name? Tomitake. Like, the bike implies Tomitake, and there could be a body in the trunk, because she didn't want to open the trunk. On the other hand, could just be fun. Well, there are no bed and breakfast in Hinamizawa, are there? Jiro-san would need to be staying in town. Is that so? Well, I guess that's right, huh? You can't really walk from town to Hinamizawa, can you? And there's no buses either. You at least need a bicycle. You didn't need to tell me that. That's why Jiro was riding a bike. For Jiro's bicycle to be stowed in my car and him not in there. That'd be strange, wouldn't it? It would mean Jiro was in Hinamizawa without a bike. I'd have to have left Jiro-san somewhere and put his bike in the car, wouldn't it? It makes sense. This is where you're like, oh, he's probably in the trunk, he'll be fine. Just make a joke about the trunk here. This is the appropriate response, is to be like, ah, so that's what's in the trunk. That's what I would be. I'm like, ah, that's what's in the trunk. Anyway, good night. As she spoke, Takano made eyes like a hawk. Unfortunately, I didn't understand what was so odd. How is he this stupid? Hey, she's like clear. I don't understand. She's clearly baiting that he's dead in the trunk, and our character's like, yeah, there's a bicycle. Okay, like okay. What about that's odd? Aren't you and Tomitake friends? I don't really think it'd be strange for there to be some reason you had his bike in your car. But it would be. I mean, Jiro and his bicycle in different places in Hinamizawa, it wouldn't make sense. And for those reasons, it means this bicycle can't be his. You understand now? The Kano's roundabout way of talking was hard to comprehend, but that eeriness I could feel, the vague dreadfulness, I didn't like it at all. But the most wild, instinctive part of me wanted me not to pry. That's my bicycle, Jiro-san picked it out for me, though. I can't deny it looks alike. Ah, I see. I thought it looked similar. You and I never saw each other tonight. And now she was talking about something completely different. What are you talking about? We never saw each other tonight. I stayed there now. How is this guy so stupid? I don't understand. I don't understand. She's like clearly saying, don't mention me. And he's like, what? What? Like, come on, man. I stayed there not knowing what to say to Kana repeated her eerie, succinct phrase to me again. We never met this night. You and I never saw each other tonight. Something cold and unpleasant crawled up my spine. I knew because I'd killed a person with my own hands before. Before I came to the conclusion, I only had one chance to beat this woman to death to keep her quiet, and I couldn't hesitate. So I could tell she arrived at the same conclusion. My instincts warned me again. I wish I'd never met this woman. The faint sense like a rotten smell drifting from this woman was no doubt the exact same sense I was giving off right now. The very peculiar aspiration, the lack of uncertainty at having taken a life for a purpose, one that only those who have risen above everything had. Maybe I should have called it a nausea. It meant, and I didn't know how to explain this well, but Takano was the same as me. In other words, someone who shouldn't have been here. Someone I couldn't have let anybody know was here. Someone who nobody would have wanted to see. And now we could calmly pretend as though we never met. Yes, which meant, just like I wanted to have nothing to do with her, she didn't want anything to do with me either. And she too wanted to make it so we'd never met. Both of us wished the same thing, our desires the same, which meant Takana's suggestion was extremely practical, and I couldn't outright refuse. If that's fine with you, sure, whatever. You and I didn't meet tonight. You're right. That would be best for you too, wouldn't it? Why do you think that? Are you seriously asking me that? You can't figure it out on your own, boy? She cut me off with the condescending word, boy. Right in front of my house in a place most unsuited to killing, and yet there was a frozen thirst for blood coming from both of us. I'd be killed right here and right now. I should definitely have beaten her as we passed each other. A damp, greasy sweat broke out on my body. That's fine. If you want me, you can come anytime. And when I made up my mind, she shook her hair elegantly and turned on her heel. Good. I'm a kind person after all. What was good? How? Because she was a kind person? Was that it? I didn't get it. Takano got into her car. We didn't exchange words of parting. I had performed a feat, the killing of Satoka's uncle, and yet I didn't feel an accomplishment. On the holy night of Oyashiro-sama's curse, on which the taking of another life was allowed. On the terribly rainy night when the demons wandered as agents of Oyashiro-sama's will. The demons were never supposed to meet, but suddenly, they did. The demons parted ways triumphantly. There was no reason for them to fight. Both their objectives had already been accomplished. With the rain hitting me like a waterfall, my eyes met with Takano's through the car window. The female demon, her mouth twisted into a distorted, fearless smile. It was too late to kill her. Far too late, that first moment. The very first moment we saw each other had been my best chance. And now that we parted, I was acutely aware of it. I should not have let her live. She beeped her horn quickly, and then her car drove into the deluge. The deluge. The one woman who knew what really happened tonight disappeared into the dark. As long as she was alive, this night would never really end. Just get into an accident, I thought to myself. In this downpour, slip on some mud or something. Fly face first into a tree and die. It wasn't a delusion, a wild flight of fantasy. It was an earnest wish, yes. A command. Die, die, die. And keep your mouth shut for eternity. Because I have no doubt you're wishing for me to die all the same. My curse upon her faded emptily as Takano's taillights disappeared into the utter darkness. Her car's lights were completely out of sight now. Even the sound of the engine faded into the heavy rain. Was inaudible now. Okay, put the shovel away, put the bike away. I too turned on my heel to draw the curtains on this insane night, to open my front door and enter to put the shovel away, dumb butt. I began walking towards the front door. I was covered in mud and made a squishing sound with every step I took. Squish. Shovel! 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 I'm just gonna keep saying shovel! Shovel! Don't worry, Keiichi Maebara. Shovel! Squish! Shovel! Squish! Shovel! She'll die. Squish! Shovel! Squish! Shovel. Her end will be as miserable as she is. Shovel. I'll throw her into some flames alive and let her dance until she's burned to a crisp. Shovel. I'll burn her to ashes in the fires of hell until she's roasted as much as she deserves. Shovel. I wish. Shovel. I really do. Shovel. Squish. Shovel. What? Just now, I hadn't taken a step, and yet a footstep. Without emotion, I turned around. If there was a footprint that wasn't my own, it was obvious someone else was behind me. Was someone else there? I was sick of this. Whoever it was, I was sick of everything tonight. This time I'd kill them. I'd kill them without a second thought. I wouldn't hesitate to turn around and dig another hole. But fortunately, there was nobody there. I wasn't going to have to kill anyone else tonight. Tonight I couldn't handle any more of it. Even if I heard an extra footstep, each time I stopped, I put it down to me being tired. Shovel. Fire from hell and victim of the 5th year. Alright. Looks like we got some new tips. So we've gotten our murder out of the way. And we've fucked up as we predicted, but trouble hasn't come yet. No trouble this time. We'll see. We'll see. The trouble is going to be next chapter. Hello? Do you need the hospital or the fire department? Fire department. Is there a fire or some accident? Please speak slowly and calmly. I think it's a fire. This is the something rest area on the highway. I can see a ton of fire and smoke from the mountains behind us. Nobody goes back there. I don't know why anything got lit on fire. Anyway, I figured I should let you know. It could turn into a forest fire. Understood. I need to know exactly where you are. Please tell me your name, a phone number we can use to get in touch, and the exact location of the fire. Notice from the fire department headquarters. We have a report of a suspicious fire on the western slopes of the something mountain. Given its distance from the road, it could be a couple's bonfire or someone unlawfully burning trash. The location is deep in the woods. No homes in the area, but the fire could spread. Immediately go to the site to verify. Is this the fire station? This is the district fire department branch. We arrived moments ago at the reported area. Fire confirmed to be a burning oil drum left in the mountains. The fire is calming and there's no chance it will spread. And, well, in the oil drum, I think it might be a person. Like a person burned with kerosene or something. I think maybe we should get the police over here. There's no mistaking it. This is a person. Okay. This year's curse, then? That's what it looks like. Kills them differently every year, but this one is particularly conspicuous, isn't it? Clawing out your own throat, that isn't normal. Let's leave the rest to the old man in forensics. I'm sure he'll find some suspicious drugs. Thanks for your hard work. Oh, Uishi-san. Komiyama and the others have arrived. Uishi, much appreciated. It seems we have a pretty crazy one this year. Yes, we've been outsmarted. I was absolutely under the impression Teppei Hojo would be killed tonight. Who's the deceased? Jiro Tomitake, a photographer with a hobby for coming to Inamizawa a few times a year. We didn't even have a mark. What member of the fire department goes eek when seeing a dead person? I don't know. It might have been... I don't know. It might have just been someone who wasn't expecting to see someone who was murdered. Like, maybe they're a new member of the fire department. Maybe they haven't seen too many burned bodies before. Because they haven't had any really bad fires. They've just had like some casual ones where someone's house gets burned down. You don't necessarily see a ton of dead bodies in the fire department as a fire department person, as a firefighter, right? Right? Like, how often do people die in fires? Well, semi-regularly, to be honest. But I mean, that's over a wide area. Realistically, you're probably not too likely to see that many dead bodies, I don't think. Especially, but it'd be surprising when you're not expecting it, at least. photographer with a hobby for coming to Hinamizawa a few times a year. We didn't even have him marked. I wonder what happened. Did they realize we were watching the Hojo residence the whole time and decide to switch their target? Maybe we sure flubbed this one. And there's no problem with Tepe Hojo. Correct, his daughter left for the festival, and a little while later he left on his motorbike. His daughter came back first. Wait, has he not come back yet? Is he still out drinking somewhere? Uishi, are you there? Call from Chief Takasugi. He's on the line in car 1. Oh boy. I fucked up. He fucked up and he's already caught. He fucked up and he's already caught. He's fucking doomed. But we kind of expected that. That's how it ends for him, right? That's what we expect. It all ends in Chapter 11. Chapter 11 is we get maybe 1 day's rest, and then things go downhill fast. So it looks like so it looks like the both of them died the same way they normally died. The both of them died the same way they normally died. We learned a little bit though. We learned a bit. Takano's boyfriend, Jiro, whose name I keep forgetting. Turns out he was actually forced to walk back by Takano. Interesting. Interesting that she forced him to walk back. Here, they actually dumped his body out on the street after he died. Not sure which one of those two. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. But I guess the good news is Takano's dead for us. Presumably, at least, right? Because the photographer ripped his own throat out, same as he does every time. Takano got killed in the barrel like she does in the previous route. And now the cops are going to notice that he's already dead. Cops are going to guess that he ran off or was already dead. One of those two, right? They're definitely going to be looking, but they won't know if he's dead if they don't find the body. They'll just think he left the city like he did last year. In fact, I think everyone will corroborate that. That was a good chapter. I'm afraid that's all we're going to get through tonight.